evening, good evening. Good evening, Palm Bay. Good evening, Palm Bay. How are you doing? Good evening, Palm Bay. How are you doing? Welcome to Palm Bay Live. Welcome to Palm Bay Live. And it's been a long work day for me. And sorry, I am a little bit late, but it's been a long work day for me. And today we have a special guest with me today, Mr. Lance Fisher, former deputy chief of the city of Palm Bay uh, Police Department, and he is here to tell his story. And I hope you're ready to give him your questions as well, because I know you have a lot of questions as to the insights of the Palm Bay and workings of the Palm Bay Police Department. And he is here to share your story, to share his story rather with you, to let him know, as an audience, what he's been up to, where he's at in the force. And I'm pretty sure you've been following the city council meetings on a monthly basis. So bi-weekly, you've seen him going up to the podium, giving his 3-minute spiel on what happened with him. And I have given him the platform tonight to kind of lay the foundation of what happened, where he's at, and what's next for him in his life. So without further ado, I want you to do me a favor, please. I have a big audience tonight, and that is beautiful. Very big audience, but we need to maximize this. Can we get it up to about 100 viewers, right? Everyone, hit the share button with your family, friends, neighbors, or you can invite your neighbors next door into your living room, and you can watch it on the Bluetooth TV or whatever the case on your TV, whatever. And let's make it a family affair. Let's get the community involved, please. This is his story to tell. So I'm going to ask you to please also be nice and ask nice questions, right? Let's get to the meat of the matter, what happened and where we are right now. So without further ado, let's invite Mr. Fisher into the audience, to the studio rather. Mr. Fisher, good evening, sir.
Okay, I appreciate it. Appreciate the intro. Special guest, yeah.
Yes,
I
special.
doubt that, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's been a long day. We have been having a lot of telephone conversations back and forth, you and your beautiful wife. And thank you for being here today, Mr. Lance. And wow, like I told you today, my schedule is free. We can be here forever. It
I
is
could
your
talk
story to
forever.
tell, and you're not going to be limited to 3 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to get this straight. You're not going to be limited to 3 minutes. This is your story to tell. An audience, if you have questions for Mr. Fisher, please do not hesitate. He's told me straight up, Kevin, I will answer any questions. Um, so please ensure that you post them in the comments. And I was trying to get my phone hooked up to my broadcast equipment tonight, but the devil is a lie. It's not working. So what we're going to do the old school way, at some point in time, if it doesn't work out, I'm still trying to get it hooked up. But if it doesn't work out, we're just going to have to do it the old school way and get you to call in to a number that you can, for those who prefer to have a conversation with him via the phone, we can be able to do that too as well. But I will keep trying in the meantime until we get to that point. Um, so Fisher, thank you for taking the time again. And before we begin, I only have 2 likes so far. Folks, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We want to get the algorithms working in our favor. His story needs to get out. So please, with 33 people watching, we should have more likes than we should just not have 2. We should have more than this. So let's get it up. Let's get it up. Let's hit the like button. We did a lot of work to get to this point. So show some appreciation by hitting that like button for me. Thank you so much. Um, the first question I want to ask you, Mr. Fisher, is to introduce yourself to the public. For those who do not know anything about you, about your background, where you're from, your family, your upbringing, use a few minutes to kind of lay that foundation before we dive into the deep questions of the day. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. I think it is important probably to talk a little bit about myself and a little bit about my background, only because, like you said, some people don't know who I am or where I come from. But I do appreciate the more than the 3 minutes, and I appreciate you allowing me to provide electronic presentation without waiting 2 days prior to. So I grew up in small town Kansas. I joined the United States Marine Corps at 22 years of age, and I ended up in initially in Annapolis, Maryland, guarding the Naval Academy. Did 2 years there, and then I joined 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, and became an infantry, joined an infantry unit. I got out in 1999, the United States Marine Corps, or I'm sorry, 2000. And that same year, I joined Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and the police force there. I stayed there for about 4.5 years. I had family here in Florida. My wife and children, we moved here, and I joined the Palm Bay Police Department. And for the first time in 2004, I stayed there till 2006. I took a private contracting job overseas, where I went to Afghanistan for a year, and then I rejoined the Palm Bay Police Department in 2007. During my tenure there, I worked patrol, field training officer, crime suppression unit. Got promoted to sergeant. I did patrol again, crime suppression again, lieutenant. I worked in our special operations divisions, patrol, and then commander, ultimately being promoted to deputy chief under Chief Agella. So I have extensive experience throughout the agency. I have a 2-year degree in criminal justice from Nash County, a 4-year degree in criminal justice from North Carolina Wesleyan, and a master's degree in public administration from FIT. I have extensive training throughout my law enforcement career. Ultimately, I did graduate from the FBI National Academy, a trilogy recipient for the FBI LEADA courses. I've graduated from Smith, Southern Management Institute of Policing, or senior management, I apologize. So I do have leadership training as well. And so I do cover the gamut. And I think that's important because I've been through all the ranks. I've done a lot of the things in law enforcement. So I can speak on what it's like to be an officer, and I can speak to what it's like to be, as a staff member, all the way up to deputy chief. I've worked with and alongside our city council, our city staff, everybody that I talk about today, I've worked alongside in my 21 years of law enforcement here in Palm Bay. Now, probably extensively over the last 5 years. So when I talk about the mayor and council people and city staff, I've worked with all of those. When I talk about officers or Chief Agella, I've worked with all of them, alongside them, been in meetings with them, and had zero issues through my career with any of them. So as we progress tonight, you'll see that how things will turn on a dime in law enforcement, and we can talk about that and talk about the culture and what it will do to you. And if it can happen to me, it could pretty much happen to anyone. So I think I've covered that. I don't want to bore our audience. So hopefully there are questions out there. And like I said, I'll answer any questions. I have nothing to hide. I've been transparent. I've talked I've talked privately, I've talked publicly, I've talked open, I've talked in podcasts. And I just believe that my story is one, I found out it's not, my story is not, it's a common story. I found that out. I'm not an isolated incident, and that's a shame, but we can talk about that. So if you have a question, I'll happily take that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for letting the audience know, lay that foundation so the audience know who you are and why we're here today. Um, so let's start talking about the deep trouble issues that faced you over the last couple of months. You and the chief, how did you guys work together initially? And what was that relationship like before things changed? Also, how was your relationship with the previous chief? And were the two similar or did they differ significantly?
And I'll stick with the first part, and then we'll talk about the second here in a bit. But yeah, Chief Agella and we've worked together for a long time. I worked for him as a sergeant, as an officer, as a sergeant, as a lieutenant. I've worked with him all through my career, and obviously there's a couple times in your career where you're gonna have your ups and downs. but for the most part, we worked well together. We worked well together when I was in crime suppression and he was in investigations. We worked well together. And so when he'd asked me to become the deputy chief, initially I was hesitant because I was looking to retire, but we agreed, that we wanted to further the agency, and so we agreed to move forward as a chief and deputy chief, um, and our relationship was good. I was I like to say I was loyal to him. I backed him on most of the decisions he made, and I didn't criticize him in public. Sometimes in private we might have difference of opinions, but I pressed his agenda forward. And I believed, and I honestly believed in his agenda. When we took over April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2022, I believed in his agenda. We talked about mental wellness and mental health and making sure that the officers were first, making sure that we took care of the officers, which we hadn't done for a while. And so I bought into his agenda. And I think for the most part, we did well. We did well. As far as the second part, you know, Chief Nelson Moya and we had a good relationship, but I've had an opportunity to speak with him since he's moved on. He's a chief of Gainesville Police Department. He's doing a phenomenal job there. I've talked to officers from Gainesville PD, and they love him down there. So he's went on and he went to Suffolk County initially, but he's at Gainesville PD and he's doing well there. So really, his I'm not going to pull him into this conversation because it's not his conversation. He's doing well where he's at, and him and I have talked, and I'm glad, and I'm proud to work for him. He was a huge mentor throughout my career. I worked for him several times as well. So, but yeah, he's doing well, and I'm happy for him, and Gainesville's lucky to have him.
Okay, great, sir. Thank you so much. All right. Now, another question. You've been open about your PTSD, your burnout, your mental health issues. Do you believe being transparent about that was later weaponized against you by leadership?
Let me. I'll answer the last one first.
Yeah.
Yes, it was absolutely weaponized against me. So Chief Agella knew that I was a military veteran. He knew that I was a disabled veteran, right? He knew that. He knew that I had been diagnosed with PTSD through the military. I've been doing law enforcement now since 2000. I actually joined the academy in 1999, but in 2000. So I've been doing law enforcement now 24 years. And any officer is going to tell you on day one, you're going to see horrific things, and they're not going to bother you. They're not going to bother you for a long time. You never know when they're going to bother you. And for some people, they may never. For me, it was when I took an administrative role, and because I did a lot of street crimes, and I did a lot of adrenaline. And when you're in an admin role, you're sitting in an office, a lot of things start creeping in on you. And so he knew that. Him and I had many conversations about his struggles and my struggles. We were open with each other, because when you have the relationship that we have as a chief and a deputy chief, there's only a few people you can talk to. And he openly talked about some of the struggles he went with, and I openly talked about some of my struggles. But he was well aware of those, and absolutely weaponized those against me. When it came time for him, and when him and I had discussion, that's the exact line he used. You're not right in the head. You can't do this job anymore. It was as simple as that. That was what he said. You're not right in the head. You're not right in the head, and you can't do this job anymore. And that was on April 17th. That was 2 days after we had an initial conversation where I told him, hey, listen, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. And he said, then I don't need you as my deputy chief. Those were his words. After 21 years of law enforcement, after 2 years of being his deputy chief, his words to me when I said, hey, I'm struggling, his words to me were, then I don't need you as my deputy chief. If you can't be a part of my succession plan, then why do I need you? And then 2 days later, he's screaming at me in my office, you're not right in the head. You can't do this job anymore. So it was absolutely weaponized against me, absolutely weaponized, which was contradicting to what he preached. And that's why I said I bought into his agenda when we first started talking about mental wellness, because he did do good with mental wellness for a lot of people, a lot of officers. but he failed with me. And he failed with me. I can't tell you why. I don't know if it's because of my position. I don't know what it was about. I don't know why, but he failed with me. But I can tell you this: when he confronted me in my office, screaming, berating, "You're not right in the head. You can't do this job anymore." I told him, "You're not going to do that to me. You're not going to talk to me like that. I've seen you do that to so many other people. I'm not going to be one of those people." And I'm telling you, I think his ego got a hold of him. And he said, "Yeah, this has worked for everybody else that I've treated like this. This guy is not going. This is going to work on this guy. If it doesn't, now I don't know. Then I got to do something different." And so when he confronted me in my office, and I'll show you a video here in a little bit that'll show you the Mario Jello that I've seen many times, that I guarantee a lot of your listeners and your watchers haven't seen. But I'll ask you to pull that up here in a little bit. But it's going to tell you probably tenfold what you're going to see is what I saw that day in my office. And so it was a shame. It was a shame that he could openly speak about his struggles. Officers were given large latitude with getting back to work once they went out for treatment. I'm talking a year and a year and a half. And then, but when I wanted to discuss it, I'm instantly told I can no longer be the deputy chief, that I'm not right in the head, and that I can't do this job anymore. I think I covered that one, so.
Yes, you did, sir. Yes, you did. Now we need to get up to at least 100 viewers tonight. Come on, folks. Let's get it going. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you like to go to the YouTube channel to watch this video, you just go to www.youtube.com, look for Palm Bay Live, and type Palm Bay Live off of that, and then you should be able to see the live stream. If you're watching on Facebook, facebook.com /Palm Bay Live, and you should be able to join the conversation from there too as well. Then go to, just make sure that you type in the comments your questions. And type your questions. Now, I have been having issues with Facebook, and that's why I've been trying to push the YouTube a lot, folks, because what's going on with Facebook on the back end is not being favorable to us for us streamers. And so they've been deleting my videos, etc. So that's why I've been pushing the YouTube channel. I need to get to at least 1,000 subscribers on YouTube right now. So if you could please do me a favor, smash that subscription button on the YouTube channel. Help this channel grow so I can do more videos like this. Because right now, Palm Bay Life is self-funded. A lot of the work that I've been doing, the ground light work, I'm not getting any commercial advertisement for it. And so I need to grow this channel so I can be able to produce more videos for you, produce more interviews like this for you. So if you can do me a favor, smash that subscription button and let's get the message out. All right. With that said, let's get into, let me know when you want me to roll that video. There's a video that Lance sent me today that I have reviewed. And folks, let's get this up to 100. Let's get the message out so everybody can see the video for themselves, and then you'll be able to draw your own conclusions. But I have a very special video that Lance sent me today, and that's going to give you another light on the chief. Okay. All right.
Now, if you want to roll it, Kevin, if you want to
do it now.
You can, or if you want to bribe the audience, that's fine too.
Yeah, let's get the numbers up. Let's get the numbers up.
I'm good.
Let's get the numbers up. Let them share the video. Let's get the numbers up so we can get more folks online, and that way we can be able to. Everybody should be able to see the video for themselves firsthand and see what's going on. Let's start asking the questions. We need to get up to at least 100 folks. Let's go. What was it like being completely cut off from the Palm Bay Police Department? You said you were locked out of the building, shut out of the systems, and basically ghosted by people you have mentored. What did that do to you mentally, emotionally, and personally? And what type of benefits did you walk out with when you left the department? Did you have workers' comp, long-term care benefits? What did you walk away with? Anything?
Yeah. So first off, by sharing that video, you probably lost some viewers because you got to understand if there's anybody from the city or the police department, they don't want to see that video. So your numbers probably went down because they definitely don't want you to get to 100. So with that being said, yeah, so I filed for FMLA on May the 1st. I filed after the chief had called me on April the 30th when I was out of town in San Antonio at a conference by myself. We had a phone conversation and he told me over the phone, I'm not bringing you back as a deputy chief. No process. I said, well, I've not been disciplined. I've not been nothing. And now you're telling me that you're taking away, you're not bringing me back as a deputy chief. And he straight up said, yeah, I'm going to give you an offer. If you don't like it, you can do a pre-termination hearing. If you don't like that, you can file a grievance. It was as straight up as that. 21 years of service. And working alongside this man, this is what I get. So basically, I filed FMLA on May the 1st. I immediately found out that, now he won't even take ownership. He blames it on the city manager, Suzanne Sherman, but he says that he labeled me as a security threat and they shut off my cell phone, my computer. They took away my vehicle. They shut off my emails. And I didn't know it till later. They shut off the access to the building. And not one person told me, not one person called me up to say, hey, you've lost all your accesses. I just had to systematically figure it out as I was going. And unfortunately, I found out about the access to the building when I was meeting another officer there. And a lieutenant had to tell me. A lieutenant, somebody it was, it worked for me. I tried to call the commander. He wouldn't get on the phone. Commander Ribnicki wouldn't return my phone call. Commander Spears wouldn't return my phone call. Nobody would acknowledge the fact that they locked me out of the building. That's how discouraging it was. These guys wouldn't even call me back. And these are leaders within the department. I literally so they made a lieutenant tell me? My boss, Mario Jello, couldn't call me and tell me. So yeah, it was disheartening. It was disheartening to lose access to the very organization that you've sacrificed for. Because remember, we teach this propaganda about family, the thin blue line, talk about a culture where everybody takes care of each other, a family. Chief Agello says that, and every time he swears an officer in, he says family, 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 family. I'm going to tell you, I've never been locked in my own house. And I don't know if you have, Kevin, but family don't lock each other out of their homes. They don't shut off their cell phones. That's not what family does. But that's what Chief Agello did. That's what he did to me anyway. He didn't do that to everybody else, but that's what he did to me. But I'll tell you, psychologically, what does that do? Especially when you're already struggling mentally, then you've been told that the career that you've had for 21 years is over in an instant over the phone. Yeah, it was a struggle. I didn't have anybody to turn to because, in my mind, they were my family. The police department was my family. I've been taught that for 25 years between two law enforcement agencies. That's what you're told. Family, your family, your family. And now all of a sudden your family has turned your back on you. That's just how it is. And it was devastating for me. It was devastating because we had a different policy in place. We had a standing rule that if people were out for physical or mental illnesses or injuries, we checked on them. We checked on them every week. We invited them to the police department. We want to make sure that they did not feel isolated from the police department because we've already recognized from a previous officer that not being at the agency will actually increase the mental health issues. It will actually cause, depression and isolation, that kind of thing, where you lose your identity. And that's just a fact. Law enforcement, we consider it sometimes an identity, and it's not the right thing to do because it's just a job, but you get lied to for 20 years talking about profession. It's a profession. It's more than just a job. It's a lifestyle, and it's a family, and it's a thin blue line, and look out for each other. That's not true. It is just a job. And this generation has it right because that's what they know. They clock in at 6 and they leave at 6. My generation didn't know that. We didn't know that. Talking about my benefits, you got to understand the city of Palm Bay fights every employee for every benefit. That's just how it is. They fought Sergeant Tobar. They fought his in the line of duty death, which his family has never gotten that from Palm Bay. They fight firefighters. So they fight every employee for any benefit they're entitled. And that's just how it is. And the city did the exact same thing to me. 21 years of sacrifice, and they absolutely fought every benefit. Now, some, like my workman's comp, I had to go to a hearing for that. Long-term disability, the city actually wrote a letter of complete lies, complete lies. Laura Clausen and HR wrote up a letter after I was separated on September, I believe it was the 13th. I was separated on September the 2nd, absolutely lying on a letter that was used against me and my long-term disability. They literally said one of the simple questions: is this employee's injury work related? They said no. We'd already been to multiple times. We've already been to depositions. We've been to all kinds of stuff about workman's comp, and the city stipulated in the very beginning on one thing and said it was work related. And so they wrote this letter saying that, was there a gradual plan to bring me back to work? And they said yes. I was already separated, so whatever plan they had to bring me back to work, they never followed through on it. But they filled this form out, completely contradicting, most probably 60% of the form contradicted what actually happened. And then you would know it that long-term disability initially denied my claim, and I had to spend another 2 months drawing up and providing all this evidence and filing an appeal just because the city arbitrarily, wrongfully, and I believe systematically filed this paperwork to again deny my benefits. But that's the way it's been every step of the way. Every step of the way. Currently, I have no benefit. I don't have I'm not currently, I don't get any retirement. I have to go through another retirement process because of my age and the fact that I was separated ahead of time. So currently I have no benefits other than workman's comp. I see a workman's comp therapist and a workman's comp mental health person, and the cardio. I had to fight for the heart and lung bill, which I was awarded. So I do see a cardiologist. But other than that, I don't get anything from the city. I absolutely don't get anything from the city. And that's it. When I walked away, I wasn't collecting a dime. I had to sell my house. I lived in my home for 19 years, and people say, oh, woe's him or whatever. But I sold my house because I had to live off of the proceeds of that house because I wasn't getting any benefits, not from the city. So I think that was a long question. I don't know if I got it all there, Kevin.
Yes, you got it. And yeah, 1 second. I need to ensure that everybody's seen the live tonight. I'm getting a message that not everybody's seen the video feed, so I want to make sure I re-share it on Facebook,
Ah,
because to get everybody, you know, to see it. But if you go to facebook.com/Palm Bay Live, you should see it. And I'm going to reshare it to the page again. Um, facebook.com/Palm Bay Live. You should be able to see it. I'm going to reshare it to the page again. I just reshared it to about 50 different Facebook groups in Brevard that I'm a part of. So it's out there. So Facebook groups out there in Brevard, you should be able to see it all the way up to Titusville, that I'm attached to. So hopefully everybody's seen it. So I just reshared it, Anna, again to the Facebook page. So thanks for letting me know that people are saying they can't see it. But once you join the page, you should be able to comment. You should be able to comment. And if that's not working, then I'm going to be in a second here going to be publishing a number that you can call in on, and I'm going to have to do the old school way where I hold the phone to the to the mic, so you'll be able to join the conversation that way too as well. So I'm going to give you multiple different ways to talk to Lance here in a second. But Lance, I lost you. What happened? Come back, buddy. Anna, help me out. I lost Lance in the meantime while we're waiting for Lance to come back. Um, so I lost you for a second, dear Lance. All right, so we're gonna wait here for a second for Lance to come back. Don't go anywhere, folks. Don't go anywhere. Just click on that link again, Lance, and you'll be right back into the studio, and we will be able to get you back on. But he's here. He has a story to tell, and we're gonna hear it. And he's not gonna be um, basically reduced to 3 minutes. I'm going to give him plenty of time, like I told him earlier today. I'm going to give him plenty of time to tell his story, and he's reconnecting. So let's give it a second here. And here he is. He's back. And so, can you hear me, Lance?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna do this all night, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna work. It's gonna work.
It's all
The
right.
devil's a liar. The devil is a liar. Unless we're growing in numbers, we have a lot of folks viewing on YouTube. I can tell you that. I can see the numbers. We have a lot of folks growing on YouTube. But let's talk about excessive culture. Let's talk about the culture of Palm Bay Police Department before we go to excessive force. And I think that would be the appropriate time to bring up the video. But remember, I need to see this numbers growing for me to bring up this special video that Lance shared with me today. So, what kind of culture do we see in the department, the Palm Bay Police Department, when you were there? You've described it as toxic, retaliatory, loyalty based, and what do you think fostered that environment, right? And how did that affect the rank and file officers in the Palm Bay Police Force?
So let me start this, right. It is National Police Week, so I do want to shout out to the men and women of Palm Bay Police Department. They do a tremendous job. They truly do.
Hmm.
And I've been very supportive, whether or not you believe me or Mayor Medina, but I've been supportive of the Palm Bay Police Department. I have not been supportive of the leadership. There's a distinct difference. So I believe that the men and women, for a majority of the Palm Bay Police Department, do a phenomenal job. They do a phenomenal job with the numbers that they have. They're undersized. They're well undermanned, underwomen. They deserve better, and that's just how it is. So when I talk about the culture, so I'm talking about the upper leadership, and I'm talking about the demand and what they expect from the people around them. And yes, I do say it's toxic. I do say it's loyalty based. Look at your last promotion, right, to lieutenant. This is a guy that berates people, that has multiple complaints about unprofessionalism to the community, that I've highlighted in council in public. That he gets online and he goes after my wife, Shane Mertens. He's a lieutenant now. He was a sergeant then. So I openly put these things out there, and he texts me an inappropriate text message while I was at the podium for the first time. And it's funny because he was out of the Chiefs' favor back in March. The Chief and I had a conversation with Shane about his unprofessionalism, the way he was treating people, the way he was treating people inside and outside the agency. And so when I talk about a culture, though, it's a culture where we've lost accountability. I can talk about several different instances, and I have, where there's been no accountability, and it's hard when you can't have accountability when you're doing the same things at the leadership position. You can't hold people below you accountable when you're not being held accountable. And when I talk about a culture, that's what I'm talking about. A culture based on loyalty, where this Chief Ajello demands loyalty. He absolutely, on occasions, gets upset if he passes somebody or they pass his office and they don't say hi. And he will call those people into the office, where he'll call them out. Yeah, this person didn't say hi to me. Sergeant Trammell didn't say hi to me. This commander didn't say hi to me. They walked by my office. I'm the chief of police. I walked into a room and they didn't even acknowledge me. But that's his ego speaking. And when we ever get to this video, so hopefully we get some people on, you'll see that ego. He demands authority. He wants to take control of the room, and he wants everybody to listen to him. And that's how it is. And so he promotes on that loyalty base. I've watched officer after officer after officer get looked over, and they'll say, well, I was in the rooms, right? I was in the rooms for promotions, but I don't make the final decisions. I don't. People talk about, my leadership ability and stuff like that. You'll see the comments. Okay. But I had a boss too, and if these things were so horrible, then my boss should have handled it. And so that's what I'm talking about. When I talk about a culture, I'm talking about where you can have aggressive cops out there. When you don't hold them accountable, they become more aggressive. And then somebody else sees that, and they start doing things. When you have an officer that gets on social media and makes racial comments on social media, and you don't hold that officer accountable, you don't hold him accountable. That officer now has zero integrity within our community, if our community knew about that, and then that same officer gets arrested for a DUI. And again, still on the workforce. Racial comments against African American community, and then he gets hit with a DUI, and he's still in the workforce. When we have people out here, using force that's unnecessary, I'll say that. But we don't hold them accountable. We don't hold them accountable, and we see incident after incident after incident after incident. I see Dave Robinson. He's a good guy there. That's another guy that wants to stay anonymous. Works out at I think it was Harris or L3 Harris. Yeah. But anyway, so the I got comments popping up. I don't know if you can hide this for me, Kevin. They're blocking my my vision. But that's the culture that's created. But when you have a leader that's demanding loyalty, that he's absolutely said, this guy wasn't loyal to me, send him back to the road. That guy's currently his IA sergeant. But because that officer came into the room and tried to defend the officers because of FOP stuff, the chief wasn't happy with it, said, that dude's not loyal to me, send him back to the road. And that's just how it is.
Great. All right. Before we bring up this video and kind of lay the foundation for it, if you can, tell us some backdrop before we bring it up, so the public can understand the framework for it and why it was, why it was taken and why you're introducing it to the public. Kind of lay that foundation for me.
Yeah, well, I think the video is an important one. Because this is the Mario Jello that I've seen many times. This is the Mario Jello that officers have seen many times. This is the Mario Jello that our citizens have seen. This is the Mario Jello that command staff has seen. But I don't think a lot of people have seen this unless you've been around him, or unless I don't want to say stood up to him, but if he didn't think you agreed with him, or if he thought you were opposing him, or if you confronted him. This is the Mario Jello you see. This is the Mario Jello that impedes in investigations, interferes in investigations. This is a Mario Jello that abuses his authority in and out of uniform. You'll see it. You'll hear it. He'll say, "I've been talking to I've called Commander Rinkins over your Melbourne." So the background of the story is this. This is an investigation. It's a personal matter, but and I really didn't want to get into it, but it is what it is. This is where his family is having an investigation in Melbourne, and he confronts a Melbourne sergeant. He gets irate with the Melbourne sergeant. You can read it's public record. You can read the supplement that's written by the lieutenant there, who talks about Mario Jello impeding and interfering with the investigation. You can talk about how he makes vague threats to a sergeant. Now, this is a deputy chief, and this is how he's treating officers from another jurisdiction, a bordering jurisdiction, right? And then he's just berating them. And I can only get the portion of the video that was on the outside. The public records request laws prohibited me from getting whatever he did on the inside, which but you can tell that he confronts officers on the inside as well. And it's a shame, because I guarantee that would have shown me even more. So that's what this video is. This is just, I think it's a 40-second clip, but you can see, and there's some there's some profanity in there, and it's not pleasant, but you can hear him say things like, "Oh, no professional courtesy," which is what he expects, because he's a police officer, that he needs professional courtesy. He talks. You can see how he uses his authority. Well, I've already talked to your commander. You can see how he threatens the sergeant, and then once that's done, I'll tell you how he carried out that threat. So if you want, roll the video. But just remember, this is the Mario Jello that I saw on April 17th. And if you want to times it by 5 or 10, that's the Mario Jello that was like, "You're not right in the head. You can't do this job anymore."
Okay, let's bring this up so everybody can see it. So brace yourself, folks. This is a quick, 40-second clip. If more, let's see how it plays out here.
So, I know it's Melbourne. It's not Palm Bay.
Yes, sir.
But if you got crime scene, which I get, you collected his clothes. They took pictures of him wearing the clothing with the vomit and the blood. You got the scene held, and you're telling me the mother or father can't go be with their baby at the hospital right now with the detective to go interview them over there?
The mother can. I'm trying to work on arranging to make sure we're clear to go on that. That's
Thank
what I'm
you.
on the phone with. I've been doing
that. Can you tell that sergeant right there? I'm not trying to be an asshole. I just got off the phone with Commander Rankins.
Okay.
All right? He better chill the fuck out. That guy better chill the fuck out, LT. Tell you right now.
Okay.
Have a little compassion, brother. I don't know how long you've been on the job. Now, our grandbaby's probably not here anymore.
Let me work with him. Okay.
Fucking no goddamn professional courtesy.
Okay. You back? We there?
Sorry.
Yep.
That's what
So
I'm saying. It's so you can see how, he's demanding. He wants you to know, I've already called your boss, right? So he's trying to tell you intimidation. That's a tactic he does. Intimidation, retaliation, and threats. That's his standard MO. And I say he's a bully. And when you stand up to bully, what do? They do whatever they can. And on April 17th, when he came to my office, you're not right in the head. You can't do this job anymore. That's the Mario Joe ×5 that was in my office, screaming and hollering and berating me. That's the Mario Joe that was there. And so many other people have taken it. I've been in offices. I've been there when he's done that to people. When he's just went. I was in there one time when he told a commander, "Oh, commander's like, I don't want to speak. I don't want to be disrespectful." And said, "Oh no, this is an open conversation. This is a free conversation." And when it was done, he went and wrote that commander up after literally saying, "Speak freely," and then he wrote him up. And so because he didn't like what he said, because he told him, "Oh, you're worse than Nelson Moya," and quite honestly, he got pissed and he wrote him up. For lying or something to effect. But this is the man. You can see it there. He's angry. He attacks, and he attacks. And you can see he went right up to that sergeant at the last part there. And then he screams about professional courtesy. But here's the kicker. And you can say it's emotional or whatever, but we all go back to our primal instincts. I've been on crime scene after crime scene after crime scene, and I've never had anybody screaming at me like that. Nobody putting a finger in my face, threatening me like that. And then here's the thing. So follow up for about 5 months later. Now Deputy Chief Mario Jello is now the chief. And keep in mind, if anybody else had done that, if anybody else had treated any officer like that, there would have been some sort of recourse, some sort of discipline, but not for Mario Jello. So 6 months later, he catches the same sergeant. There's a leadership seminar over in FIT, and this sergeant gets on the elevator, and all of a sudden, from behind, he whispers, "Do you know who I am? Because I sure the F remember who you are." And they get into a confrontation, and that's Chief of Jello, the chief of police, not an officer, not a citizen, but that's the chief of police, whispering in a sergeant's ear from Melbourne Police Department, who was handling an investigation months earlier. So talk about whatever feelings that you had that day. But 6 months later, 5 months later, however long ago it is, now you're going to threaten that sergeant in an elevator, and this was done in front of officers. Our officers had to separate him from that, and then this sergeant goes and files the complaint against the chief to Suzanne Sherman, and she doesn't even acknowledge it. She doesn't acknowledge the complaint. She literally tells the sergeant, "I think the best thing for you to do is sit down and discuss it." Well, that's not what this sergeant wanted to do. He was like, if anybody else had done that, if my chief had done that, he would have been fired, terminated. And the sergeant is absolutely right, because there's no reason for bordering agencies to have that kind of conversation. There's no reason for a chief of police to whisper into a sergeant's ear and say, "Do you remember who I am? Because I sure remember who you are." It's uncalled for. But that's the mentality that Chief Agello has. And it just amazes me. It absolutely amazes me that he continues to do these things and get away with it. I put up on I go to council and I started doing presentations. I think we'll get into it maybe a little bit later. I started doing presentations because I was like, I don't know if people believe me. So I started putting them up on the board. I started putting up text messages. A text message where he tells Deputy Chief Spears during a call for service to go buy a pellet gun, buy a pellet rifle, and pop children one by one. This is your chief of police telling your deputy chief to go buy a pellet rifle and shoot children. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
wow.
You got to be kidding me. If that had been any officer, if that had been a civilian, if that had been a student, there would have been an investigation. Had that have happened in a school, we would have locked that school down and done an investigation. Had that have been an officer, I guarantee they would have gotten jammed up, right?
Right, right,
I put
right.
it on the screen. And then I talk about, because he talks about, his officers being a family. But then I put up on the screen a text message where we're talking about officers that are out for medical and mental wellness. And he said, and comments made, Chief, do you need a driver? And he says, not any of these yahoos. He's calling our own officers idiots. That's what I literally Googled it to make sure I was right. But that's what yahoos means, idiots. So now I have a chief of police who doesn't care about his officers. He can say whatever he wants in public, but I can tell you what he says behind closed doors because I have the proof. I can tell you what he does to citizens, does to other people. I have the video. I can tell you, and I've talked about the sober living facility across the house from him. And it baffles me. It absolutely baffles me that a chief of police can utilize every resource that he has to attack his neighbor and get away with it.
Okay,
Arrest people. It just baffles me.
Start taking some of these questions from the
Oh, yeah.
audience.
So,
So
did Dave Robinson have one?
Yeah, no, I didn't see a question. He just made a comment that says, "What a resume, great job."
Yeah,
So
see, and just so you know, another fake profile used through the city. The guy works at L3 Harris. He's buddies with somebody at the police department. I come out and I'm vocal and I show my face and I show my name. But then you have these guys, right? That are hiding. And this is, when you talk about intimidation and threat, and I think, you and I have discussed that, right? Safety of my family. They use these fake profiles and they use these fake people in the community or whatever to try to make these comments because they don't have the courage to do them themselves. But this is how they try to intimidate my family. You see the same thing in Titusville. You mentioned Titusville earlier. You see the same thing there.
Okay.
Anyway,
1 second. We have a
what we
call.
got?
We have a caller. Let's see if we can make this work. I'm going to hold the phone up. Caller, you're live. Can you hear?
Yes.
Caller, I'm not hearing you.
Yes. First off, Mr. Fisher, I'd like to really commend you for stepping up and putting this out. It's very brave of you. And
You're going to have to turn off your device in the background because we're going to have background feedback.
okay. What I'd like to know, is it true that Chief Augello was in a group text laughing with others about how much money they were going to make off of school zone infractions?
Did you hear the question, Lance?
I got it. You ready for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's a pretty
Thanks,
hot topic,
caller.
right? Speed zone cameras, and thank you for bringing it up. And I appreciate your comments in the beginning. So thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. So speed zone cameras. So I was in every meeting at the beginning of these. This was Commander Latulip and at the time Lieutenant Ribnicki, now a commander, were in charge of this project. And during the speed zone camera projects, we met with Red Speed, I believe is the company, and I think the gentleman's name is Greg. That's off the top of my head. And one of the discussions, we talked about a small town in Georgia and how much money they were making. 17 cameras, small town, making $250,000 a month. And I'm going to tell you right now, we jumped for joy. We were high-fiving. We were doing the money signs. We were doing all this stuff. We were pretty excited, right? Thinking all the money we're going to bring in. There was never any talk about children's safety, not one time. And if you want to pull the stats, on crashes in school zones, you're probably not going to find any. I can't tell you in the 20 years I worked here, I don't know of too many crashes that were in the school zones. I can tell you fatalities that happened just outside school zones. I can tell you two that happened in the Publix parking lot of Bayside, but we don't do any extra enforcement down there. So yeah, there was a text message. Commander Latulip had sent a text message to me and a chief, and it's a calculator, and he talks about they've done a test run and out of over, I think it was a month. I don't remember how long, but it was like $100 and some thousand that we would get to compared to like 11,000 that crossing guards would get. And then it was a laughing. LOL. Like, yeah, if it was so much about children's safety, then why are crossing guards getting just pennies on the dollar compared to what we were going to get? But yeah, it was, the whole thing was about money. You can't tell me that that just putting up a small sign and then trying to collect money is providing safety for our children. Because I'll tell you what you haven't seen, and I've been I go through, I got a kid in school, so I travel through the Odyssey school zone, and I used to travel through there, and there'd always be an officer parked there. But I'll tell you what hasn't been there since the cameras were there is an officer. You know why? Because it's going to slow people down, and if they slow people down, people aren't going to get tickets. And if people don't get tickets, the police department doesn't get money, and that's just a fact. Now I can tell you where I have seen officers, and I've got pictures of it. And again, I'm not blaming the officers. This is a leadership that speaks for an agency that can't commit. That's just how it is. These officers don't have the ability. They don't have the ability to patrol the compound all the time. They don't have the ability to sit in the school zone all the time. They just don't have the ability. So you have a leadership that's speaking that can't write the check. That's just how it is. Because you're limited on your officers. Our city is expanding way too fast, way too residential, and you're putting all the pressure on your officers. But then when you're chief and you start talking about, oh, we're going to be in the compound, it's going to be a zero tolerance. But then you have a video with two officers out there and a guy doing wheelies, and the officers are telling the guy just be safe. So these speed cameras are the same thing. I've seen officers sitting outside of the church, just outside of the Jupiter school zone. I've seen them sitting down at the Bayside golf course, just outside the Eldron school zone. And the chief says, "Oh, it's going to free them up to do other things." That's not true. That's absolutely not true. It's just not true. Again, I'm not blaming the officers because they have to write reports. They have to go out there. But I'll tell you what these speed cameras have done. They've absolutely have been placed on the backs of our citizens. I don't know how many bad tickets have to be written. Tickets coming from Miami-Dade. That's insane. And what do? We just keep stopping the cameras temporarily, and then people will forget about it. We'll bring them back up again, and then we'll stop them again. What they need to do is absolutely dissolve the program. It's been proven that it's ineffective. The stats have proven that. The citizens, we're paying for those $100 at a time. Use that money to break the contract. It's as simple as that. Break the contract. But yes, that is true. Text message, all about money.
All right, let's try to get some more questions. Let's ensure we get some audience participation. More people have joined us, Lance. The YouTube participation has grown. I don't know if you realize that, but the numbers are creeping up.
I just saw 1 million too.
Yeah, yeah, we could get some more here. Jansen family says, thanks, Kevin, for hosting these important discussions. I think there needs to be a lot more transparency with what was going on. Okay. Maybe we should run for mayor of Palm Bay. We need a leader like you. I don't know if you have any political endeavors. Jane says PPD and the city have failed Lance Fisher. They did not protect him under the Whistleblower Act when Mr. Fisher went to prearranged appointment with the city manager to complain about the issues with the chief. The chief was already in her office, so he was forced to speak in front of the chief, not privately as it should have been.
Can you comment on that one?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and comment while I look for more questions.
That's absolutely true, right? So after the April 17th, I immediately asked to speak with the city manager. I didn't like the way I was treated. I didn't like being berated in my office, and I didn't like somebody telling me, you're not right and you couldn't do this job anymore. So I immediately asked to speak with the city manager because, quite frankly, after I refused to allow him to talk to me like that, he threw me out of the building. He said, "I'm the chief of police. I can talk to you however you want." He threw me out of the building for the day. But I came back the next morning thinking that it was an argument. But I did. I asked to meet the city manager, and sure enough, when I walked in there, it was the city manager and Chief Agello. I tried to tell her my complaints. I tried to, I told that I didn't appreciate being treated like that. I didn't appreciate being discriminated upon because I was
I'm
open
not sure
about my
what's
mental
happening.
wellness.
I'm getting some. Lance, are you there?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I was getting some bad audio. Go ahead.
From me?
Yeah, no, I was just hearing it in the background. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I went in there to file my complaints with the city manager, Suzanne Sherman, and she had the chief in the room. And I don't know if she thought, like I said, the other sergeant wanted to meet with the chief, and her idea was, well, just let the two people sit down, they could discuss it. But that's not how complaints work. When you're trying to file a complaint against your boss, and just because he's the chief of police, you have that right. You have that right. And unfortunately, the city did not provide me that right. They just didn't provide it to me. They provided me zero protection.
Right.
So
Okay.
thank you for the comment.
We have another caller on the air. Let's go ahead and get a question. Go ahead, caller. Caller, go
Yes,
ahead.
I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on the city attorney and the mayor Medina, and why do you feel that they're protecting the police department on these matters that you speak against?
Did you get a question?
I did. That's a good question. Good question. So, I don't like to, I think you said, why do I think? I try to stick with the facts. So I'll just do that. I'll try to leave my opinion out of it. But the fact is this. After I met with Suzanne Sherman, she refused to acknowledge my complaints. I told you on May 1st, I was systematically isolated from my emails, my phone calls, everything, even the building. Then Mario Jello took time out of my time card that wasn't authorized. And so I had to call HR and get my time back. And then he took my vehicle from me. And I wrote a letter, finally on May, or I spoke to the city attorney and I told her what was going on. I told her about Half-Dead Street. I told her about, my discrimination. I told her, we had a long conversation and so she was well aware of it. She's been aware of it from the very beginning. And so then I immediately followed that verbal conversation up with an email that said, hey, based on the confidentiality and severity of my allegations, I'm requesting a whistleblower status. I sent that in an email, and then she replied back that I had to do it in writing. So then I sent an email on May the 9th. It went from the 9th to the 10th because quite honestly, I think I typed for a couple hours, and I sent them a whole list of allegations, a whole list, and I'm still an employee. And, thinking that they were going to cover me, right? We have a whistleblower policy. I'm filing a complaint against my boss. I'm telling them what I believe to be illegal and unethical practices, mistreating employees, not city employees, mistreating citizens, confronting them on and off duty. And so the city attorney was well aware. So moving into, and in that letter, I honestly, the last thing in the letter, I said, handle this within the city. The last thing I want to do is put the city through put another spotlight on Palm Bay, because we have enough spotlights. I don't know if you watch city council, but there's not a whole lot of people that get up there and talk about how great this city is. The mayor is the only one I've ever heard say the greatest city on the face of the earth. And it's just not true. It's just not true. It can be, but you have to start listening to your citizens. You have to listen to your employees. And so the reason that, I mentioned earlier that the city attorney fights every step of the way, it's because she's been involved every step of the way, and she has failed to report it to anybody. And that's a problem. I believe that if you're an officer of the court, if you're a city attorney, I believe you have a responsibility. When somebody makes allegations like I have, I believe that she's in a position that she has to report to somebody. I don't know if legally she has to. I think ethically, that's what you are. You're the city attorney. You should be providing advice. But like, man, I'm gonna tell you what. So just because Chief and I had an argument in the office, he wanted to put me on administrative leave and do an investigation. He never did, but he threatened to do that. That's what in our meeting. So he's going to put me on administrative leave because of an argument. I'm making allegations that he is he's improperly mismanaging his resources, that he's using them for personal gain to attack his residents. I'm telling you how he's treating citizens, how he's treated me. And that man has sat in his position and he's going to put me out on administrative leave because of an argument. But yeah, I'm making allegations that I can prove that how he's treating everybody around him. I can prove how he's treated Melbourne Police Department. I can prove that he's telling his deputy chief to shoot children. I can prove that he's calling his officers yahoos. I can prove that as citizens are being loaded up on ambulances across the street from him, that he's pissed off, taking pictures of them and forwarding to the command staff saying, I'm tired of this. Do something about this house. I can prove that there was 185 at the time calls for service, police initiated calls for service targeting that house. I can prove that that house is a sober living facility that is protected by the 1988 Fair Housing Act. I can prove all those things. I've done it. I've done it in council. But yet that man has not been investigated or placed on administrative leave. But yet he was going to place me on administrative leave because of an argument. And I'll tell you why. Because he didn't want me speaking. He didn't want
Right.
me speaking.
Okay.
I've been in
Lance,
every meeting.
I'm going to take a pin here. We want to take some questions
Okay,
from the
yeah,
audience.
shut me off.
We
I'll talk
don't
all
want
day.
to lose them. A lot of people are watching you and they have questions for you. So I'm going to
Yeah, no
take some
problem.
questions from the comments section. Let's start off with Karen. Karen have a question. She says, was this normal in Palm Bay, particularly in the police department? I'm not sure what she was referring to. I guess at some point in the conversation, she that's what probably prompted that question. Let me go to other questions. Why does the mayor not listen to both sides? I'm not sure how if I can answer that. And we're not sure, Karen. Let's see. As Jane said, why was the city manager allowed to violate whistleblower complaints?
I can go on
Good
that one
question.
real quick.
Go ahead, opine on it if you like. Go ahead.
Oh, because I finally in September I sent Patricia Smith an email and I said, "Have I been granted whistleblower status?" And she said no, that you weren't retaliated against. That's her answer. I don't know who gets to make that determination. I don't know if it's Patricia Smith that gets to say whether or not I get whistleblower status, because I know there's all kinds of laws and stuff, and I'm not a lawyer. She is, but that's the response I got in an email. Nope, you weren't retaliated against. But I'll tell you this: she asked me, and Eric Messenger asked me to provide a statement on April 15th, or I'm sorry, August the 15th to her office in regards to my allegations against Chief Agello, and I provided that statement on a verbal statement on August 15th. I was separated 7 days later, but not retaliatory.
Hmm.
You
Okay.
know, I can tell you the facts.
Yeah. You want to tell me the facts now, or you
You know what
want
I'm
to?
saying? Those are the facts. I can't tell you anything more than those.
Okay. So Robert said, shaking my head, so much dedicated service tossed to the side like trash. Okay. All right. That was the answer again. And let's see. Karen is asking what happened in Tallahassee. We can get to that in a second. Let's answer some more questions. Let's stick a pin on that question. Remember that one, Lance, so you can answer it in a minute. Let's
You-
go down the pipe and see if we don't want to lose the audience. We want to make sure we get their questions in as much as possible. Sirs, if upper management is a problem, where you also part of the problem while you were on the force, were you biased? Were you part of the loyalty thing? Did you ever favor particular officers rather, and make sure they got where they wanted to go? Did you prevent officers from getting where they wanted to go? Um, do you want to
Question.
comment on that?
Absolutely do. Absolutely do. So the first part of that, was I part of the problem? Absolutely 100% I was part of the problem.
Okay.
100%. And I've never shied away from that. I have never said I wasn't, right? Because I told you in the beginning, I was loyal to Chief Agello. I was a
Mhm.
deputy chief. I have responsibility. I was a part of that culture. I grew up in that culture and I helped, towards the end, or I helped, participate and create some of that culture. So I've never shied away from my involvement with that. I'm not saying it's right and I'm not proud of it. But when the time came that I no longer, I saw things differently, that's where the problems, that's when we started butting heads. So yeah, I was I was part of the problem, and I wish, people say, and I've said this before, why didn't you come out sooner? It's a struggle to come out and go against the very people you've worked alongside. It's a struggle. We have the thin blue line for a reason, right? I mean, that's the symbol, the thin blue line. I talked about family. Your bread for, this thing is instilled in you every single day, every single day. And if it's not checked, that's where you have your George Floyds. That's where you have, your Memphis incidents. That's where you have those kind of things that take place when a culture takes over and there's no accountability. So yes, I was part of the problem, and I regret that. I wish I'd done things differently. But if I had, I wouldn't be in the position I'm at. And like I've told people, if I had come out sooner, I would have been fired sooner. I would have sold my house sooner. But it is what it is. It's unfortunate because there are a lot of people that are still there. And I get phone calls. I get text messages from officers that are still there. I get them from higher ups and I get them from officers, that aren't happy. But I'm gonna tell you what, they sure won't say anything. Look what happened to me. I was a deputy chief. I was gone in a day. I was gone in a day. So you think anybody else, and you don't think that's a statement? A statement to any city employee? You have the mayor bashing me from the podium. And you think any city employee is going to come out? Absolutely not. So yes, I was part of the problem. I do appreciate that question because I've not shied away from my responsibility. I will absolutely take ownership when I have to.
Okay, let's talk about Tallahassee. What happened in Tallahassee?
So I talked about and I want to be a little careful here, right? Because it's a little bit hypocritical of me to say that Chief Agello impedes and interferes in an investigation and me try to do the same thing. So I'll be hesitant, but I'll talk about it. So I told you on May 9th when I wrote that letter, I asked the city, handle this in-house. I don't want to put another black eye. I don't want to speak out about the police department. I've been a part of that organization now for 20 some years. And literally all I said, and it's all public record, you can request my emails, you can request anything I'm telling you about today. There's nothing I'm telling you today that I haven't provided. And there's nothing I'm telling you today that you can't prove yourself. But I said in there, I just want to be left alone so I can get my treatment. That's all I wanted to do. I want to get better. The chief had made it clear I wasn't coming back. I just wanted to be at least better when my career was over, because I already talked about it. I wasn't in good shape. I was struggling mentally, struggling with my family. I was struggling with all kinds of stuff. So I started speaking. I got separated on September the 2nd, and I spoke at council on September the 5th. And I talked about my story. And I'll be honest, I thought within 4, 5, 6 months, and the only thing I really ever asked for was an investigation. And I don't know if we'll get into the Rumberger Kirk incident, but that's all I wanted. Just, you know what, do an investigation. If I'm lying, tell me I'm lying. If you don't care, tell me you don't care. If you don't care, your chief targets citizens, violates people's rights, that makes fun of your citizens on stretchers, calls your officers yahoos. If you don't care, I'm good with that. Just tell me you don't care. Tell the citizens you don't care. Tell me you don't care. That's all I'd ever asked. Just do an investigation. But again, they refused. And, you'll see, again, fake profiles, targeting, trying to bash me, my family. They'll call me all kinds of names, but they haven't called me a liar.
Yeah.
Every comment you'll see, nobody's called me a liar. So we went to Tallahassee, and I wanted to meet with some of the organizations up there to find out, how do I move forward? How do I take this out of the hands? How do I take it out of the hands of our city council, of our city staff? Because they're clearly, and this is before Mr. Morton. So, this is before Mr. Morton got in there. So I can't speak on him. I have hopes that, during his interview and his process, talked about accountability and all that. And I know he's new, but I have hopes that he'll do something. I have hopes that he'll do an investigation. He'll do something. But I've taken it out of their hands. I went to Tallahassee. I guess this is a good time. I guess with I think it was Miss Foy asked. But yeah, I went to Tallahassee. I met with several officers up there. I had conversations with them. I filed paperwork with several organizations up there in Tallahassee because, quite frankly, I'm done. I want to move on with my life too. But it's not fair. It's not fair to the officers. It's not fair to the citizens. It's not fair to everybody that's been left behind that's tried to stand beside me throughout my ordeal, just to pack up and walk away. I want closure, but all I've ever asked, and the only thing you saw on my last PowerPoint was do the right thing, because they wouldn't even show my PowerPoint. But that's it. So yeah, that was my intent to go to Tallahassee to go face to face with people, have conversations, and start taking this out of the hands of our city officials and our council, because quite frankly, they're not doing anything. The only thing they're doing is taking away the rights of the citizens because of my speaking. And that was the last thing I wanted.
Okay, let's bring one more question online here, and then I'm going to go back to my line of questioning. Sir, in your opinion, what will the state of the police department look like once the current chief is out? Should the new chief come from within? Who should that be? Should it be from the outside? Will it ever get better for the force internally from what you're describing?
Yeah, I like this Ethan Alexander guy. So good questions again, right? So I've been very open. You have to go to an outside chief. You have to go to, so look at, I don't want to compare agencies, but Melbourne did that. They didn't like their culture years ago, and they went to an outside chief who brought in an outside deputy chief who brought in outside commanders. And that's exactly what Palm Bay Police Department has to do. You got to understand, right? That I'll add a little twist to it. So you have Chief of Jello, right? And you look at that command staff. You have an all white male command staff. Just a fact. I'm only pointing the facts out. 4 of the 6 are current or previous SWAT members. So there's your culture. Chief of Jello, previous SWAT commander. Jeff Spears, previous SWAT member. Commander Rudnicki, SWAT commander. Commander Latulip, SWAT commander. They've all worked together. They've all been side by side, and they've all had conversations about making sure that they take care of each other throughout the ranks, right? And so so when you have to go to an outside chief, and you have to go to an outside chief that's willing to come in and change out a portion of that command staff. That command staff is tight, they're loyal, and to get rid of one person, you're just going to replace them with another Mario Agello. Get rid of 2 people, you're just replacing with another Mario Agello. And here's the beauty. Deputy Chief Spears, he's on probation, so it's instant. The other 2, Greg Latulip in the drop, it's instant. Commander Rubnicki, he's going to be in the drop soon as well. So and then you got to look at their qualifications. The reason that they can't even be a deputy chief and why you got a 14-year deputy chief in place is because the other commanders don't have the education even to move into that position. So you're promoting people that can't even move up. You're worried about a succession plan, but you're promoting loyalty and not merit. And so you're promoting people who can't even advance. You're making dead positions, and that's just the way it is. So when you promote like that, you're killing spots.
Lance, let me ask you a question because I saw somebody commenting in the chat about false arrests. Have there been any instances of false arrest or abuse of power in the force that you know of?
I'll go with facts, right? So look at the Scott McIntyre case, and you can Google it. You can public records it. So this is a case where a gentleman is riding on a Segway, and he gets stopped for not having a red light on a Segway. Go with what what you want with that, but that's what he gets stopped for. During the confrontation, right? He's being he's telling the officers the right things. He's saying, "Hey, listen, I'll do whatever you need. Write me a ticket. I don't want to be detained. All this kind of stuff." But an officer gets frustrated with him. The gentleman puts his hand on the patrol car, puts his cold out to warm his hands up. And when the other officer, who's not even the initiate officer, starts talking to him, the guy turns and takes his hands off the car. The officer gets upset, tells him, "Put your hands back on the car." And he's trying to explain to him, "Listen, I only had him on there because it was cold out." Next thing you know, he's taken to the ground. He's arrested for resisting arrest, and because of the use of force that we used, he was taken to the hospital. In the hospital, the corporal reviews the case and tells him, and it's in a report. You can pull the report. Corporal, now Sergeant, or soon to be Sergeant Neely, says in the report, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this arrest, nor am I comfortable with the use of force," and basically says you're free to go. And so, I know he's represented by a lawyer. I don't know where the case is going, but it's in writing. Yeah, this supervisor did not believe this was a lawful arrest and did not believe the force that was used was justified. Now, I can also tell you that gentleman talked about money that was missing because they lost his wallet and a knife that night. It's in the body camera footage that I reviewed, and he says, they find his wallet, but he's missing money. It's never documented in any reports. There's a call from one of the officers to the gentleman after he's released saying, "Hey, I found your knife," and the guy's like, "Oh, you found my knife?" And he's like, "Yep, well, not your knife, but I have a knife I would like to give you, pretty much so we can be friends later on." And the guy's like, "No, I don't want that knife. I want my knife." But I'll tell you this, there was a knife submitted into evidence. I don't know whose knife it was. I don't know if that knife was found later on and submitted into evidence because the report doesn't say. It does say a knife was submitted evidence, but there's no description. So yeah, there are abuse of powers out there. And that's what I'm saying. If you don't hold things in check, if you don't hold the small things in check, they get bigger and they get bigger. And before you know it, you have a national incident on your hands. And we're just waiting for that. We're just waiting for that incident.
Okay, we have another caller in the line. Let's go ahead and take this call. Go ahead, caller.
Yes. Is every officer required to wear a body cam? And if so, why isn't upper command wearing them? Thank you.
The answer
All
now.
right. Yeah. So we have all our officers that are assigned body cameras for whatever reason. And they have to use them. You know, even our undercover guys and stuff like that have to put them on if they're going into tactical situations. For whatever reason, our policy does not lieutenant, or I think it's command staff. They're not required to wear body cameras. And so it's unfortunate because, right. So if I was as deputy chief, and you know, I never thought about it when I was a deputy chief, to go back to that question by Ethan, you know, was I part of the problem? Absolutely. Did I want to wear a body camera? Probably not. I sat in an office all the time, but did I have contact with the public? I absolutely did. So was there times I should have used the body camera? I'm sure. I'll tell you this, even though it wouldn't have been playing, I wish there was a body camera on April 17th in my office, but we don't require body cameras beyond in the office. But I guarantee that would have changed perspectives that day, probably from two different sides. But yeah, so our command staff does not wear body cameras. Our commanders do not wear body cameras. The deputy chief does not wear a body camera. Our chief of police does not wear a body camera. So they require all their officers to follow body cameras, to be transparent and to document how they're treating people. But our command staff doesn't, and they interact with folks. I mean, last night, you know, we're in the public speaking portions of council. 4 officers were inside the chambers, the chief and then 3 officers. And as one person leaves the podium and walks outside, the chief follows him outside. And I can't tell you what that conversation was, but I know that at least 2 citizens went out to make sure that that gentleman was going to be okay. But we'll never know what that conversation was like because the chief doesn't wear a body camera. We won't know what that conversation was like on the elevator when he whispered in that sergeant's ear in Melbourne because he wasn't wearing a body camera. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't know why. I don't know why our command staff doesn't wear body cameras. I don't know why, because the chief of Melbourne does. The last I knew, the chief of West Melbourne does. So I don't know, but yeah, and that's, you know, that's the old thing. I expect you to do something, but I'm not willing to do it myself, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate, but good question.
Yeah, good questions. Um, what steps have you taken, if any, to protect yourself or seek help from outside agencies or legal counsel? I think you pretty much alluded to some of these answers already. And have you called for any whistleblower protections, or have any state or federal officials responded to you? And please let us know if you're able to opine on what's being said to you.
Okay. Again, like I said, I want to be careful because I did tell you I have had contact with several agencies. So last week, I took it out of the city's hands, and I did. I wrote up I think I said 21 before, but 17-page documentation outlining my allegations, my concerns with city officials, with the chief, and I sent those out to various agencies throughout this country. Whether I've gotten responses back or not, I don't really want to talk about that because I'm not going to jeopardize, I'm not going to impede, and I'm not going to interfere with any investigation. Again, I'd be hypocritical if I were to sit here and tell you everything that I did and try to force an investigation from an outside agency. I can tell you I have contacted multiple outside agencies. I feel confident that there will be resolution. It's unfortunate it won't be the resolution I'd hoped for in the beginning. That would be private. You know, this city has already been through federal investigations where we've had public officials get arrested. We've had incidents with council people getting arrested. You know, we've had all kinds of incidents. The last thing Palm Bay needs is another incident. All I ever wanted was somebody to stop, take a look, and do the right thing. But that's not going to happen. Unless Mr. Morton steps up, or unless the city council decides, hey, this guy, he's provided enough proof that we have to do something to stop, to at least show good faith. No, it's going to take an outside agency to come in and deal with that. And I reluctantly did it last week. I put it out there because, again, I want resolution as well. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I think the citizens of Palm Bay deserve better. I think they deserve answers. You know, people have been coming to the podium. People have been asking, you know, why does this guy have to keep coming to the podium? Either call me a liar or prove me right. You've had opportunities to do that. Call me a liar or prove me right. It's very simple. I've put black and white things up on the screen. I've shown documentation. I don't know what else they need. So if this city council is not willing, if this city manager is not willing, if our city officials aren't willing to do something, so be it then. I'll get somebody involved that will, and it won't be pretty. That's the unfortunate part. It will not be pretty. This could have all been handled. It still can be handled. It can be handled today. It can be handled right now within an hour. It can be handled tomorrow. Just doing the right thing. That's all I've ever asked. Do the right thing for the citizens. Do the right thing for the men and women. You know, you sit up there on the council and mayor says, oh, I back our men and women in blue and firefighters. Then do the right thing. Look at the leadership. If you truly back, you cannot back an individual. You can't. You can't back an individual and say you're backing an entire police department. You can't do that. If you're gonna say I back the men and women of the Palm Bay Police Department, then back the men and women of the Palm Bay Police Department. Back the people that are out there doing the job. Don't back one individual, because that's you're lying. You're just flat out lying when you say, then say this, I back Mario Jello. I don't care about the rest of the police department. I back Mario Jello, because those are two different statements.
Okay, caller. We have a
Oh,
caller
sorry.
on the line.
Mhm.
Caller, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Sure. Hi, Mr. Fisher. How are you?
I'm doing well, ma'am. Yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're not going to be able to hear him back. Just ask, just pose a question.
You had mentioned that Patricia had said that you were not retaliated against. That's why you were not given the whistleblower status. However, I find it confusing because we have officers that have DUIs. We have officers that are drug addicts, basically, officers that have committed the heinous crimes of, sexual assault on a minor, and they were still wearing the Palm Bay uniform. And you were basically let go because you asked for time off because you needed a mental break. If that's not retaliation, what they've done to you, I don't understand what retaliation means anymore. Can you elaborate on that?
Another good question. It is ironic.
Yes,
I think I said that in one of my podcasts, that we've had officers arrested that were treated better than me. It's a fact. It's just a fact. They didn't lose their computer privileges. They didn't lose their phone call privileges. They didn't lose I don't know if they lost their car privileges or not. They weren't ever denied access to the building, but they were treated better than me. Yeah, I can tell you that. You tell me, retaliated. I was never off. I was never invited back into the building after I was thrown out. Yeah, no conversations. Even the people I'd worked with, one commander, I've said it before, is the godfather of my child. Guy came to my house, didn't say a word to me when he took my vehicle. I'll tell you, not retaliatory, right? So I had property in my office that I wanted. When I went to go get it, I was told I'm not allowed in the building. So they send 4 pieces of property. They sent 5 cars to my house. I'm sorry, 4 cars to my house and 5 officers. And this was at the end of May. I hadn't been gone for 30 days. These officers pull up into my house like a caravan, like a SWAT caravan, and a majority of them were SWAT officers. They get out of the car and they don't say a word to me. I'm the deputy chief, and they don't say a word to me. I even asked the officer who's I know is using a body camera. 1 of 5 had a body camera. I said, "Man, are you body camming my house? Because I'm exempt by law. I don't need my wife in my house on body camera. This isn't a call for service. I didn't even know the police department was bringing my property back. I just assumed it would be some fleet guys with a van or something." But then he doesn't even say a word to me. He just points to the lieutenant. So again, retaliation, I don't know. Our property was the rest of my property was thrown into a box in my office. And then the chief and the deputy chief, Spears, get a good laugh out of it. They put a little thing on the top of it, says, my boss thinks I'm the greatest, or something to that effect. And then they do a little snide comment on it on their personal phones. On their personal phones, they do this because, again, they're trying to avoid public records. So I get the public records from their personal phones. And sure enough, there's a little snide comment in there. Well, this is all the property he has, unless he has a secret hideaway or something like that. LOL. So I'm not even away from the police department for 30 days. And they already treat me like a Yahoo. They treat me like a Yahoo, a guy that's out for mental wellness. And here they are sending a team to my house to throw property on on the front of my doorstep. Don't say a word to me. There was an email sent out that I was no longer with the police department in June to a vendor that I'd worked with. They literally said he's no longer with the police department in June. I wasn't separated till September 23rd, or September 2nd. Those are the facts. Retaliation. Yeah. I mean, call it what you want.
Okay, let's get to another question really fast. I saw this question, and this one is pressing because this just happened recently. Council was quiet at the last meeting. Council voted not to let us see anything until after public comments, and a lot of the public, right, is on the impression the reason why they did this is because of you, right? They didn't. They don't want us to see what you're saying. That's what the public. A lot of folks have contacted me as a media person and say, Kevin, why is this happening? All right. And this is one of the reasons why I agreed to do this interview, because I wanted to hear your story, and I'm sure the public wants to hear your story. So they already showed the entire meeting last night. Why do you think they showed the entire meeting last night?
Well, again, I'll go with facts. I don't like to think part, but I'll tell you what, I'll go with the conspiracy theory. I didn't submit a presentation this week, and they knew I wasn't going to speak. They knew they got hit with they received their packets that I filed, because I did send them to the city as well. So they knew that I got the packets, and they knew that I've been in contact with some agencies, and they knew that I was advised just to kind of let the investigation roll. And so I think they knew, quite frankly, that I wasn't going to speak last night. I was going to speak on speed cameras, but you know what? I think Councilman Langevin is doing well with that one, and I hope he succeeds. So that's my belief. They believe they let it roll because they knew I wasn't speaking. But I'll tell you this: I'll speak at the next council. I'll let them know right now, and we'll see if they block them or not. That's my conspiracy theory. But you know what I can tell you? They had four officers inside those chambers when they did the public comments. And you can say what you want. I've never seen four officers. They've stood behind me before. When I first started speaking out, they would put one right behind the door, right behind my wife and I, and they would stand there. But last night there were four in the council chambers. And if it wasn't for me, it was certainly for somebody at public speaking, intimidation factor. And as soon as public comments were over, two of them left. And that's just a fact. So yeah, absolutely. And these aren't my words that said that they did this amendment for me. People started calling me the Saturday after the agenda hit and said, "You see what they're doing?" And they talk about electronic presentations, which I'm the only one that's been doing electronic presentations. So now they get to get them 2 days in advance, so they get to look at them and play a defense for them. They talked about public speaking. I'm the one who used the curse word, right? Because I said in open forum what Shane Mertens would text me. F you. That's what he texts me. I use the chief's words. He uses curse words in his text messages, so I said them out loud. But they don't care that other people are saying those, because Shane Mertens got promoted based off his text message, and Chief Agello does whatever he wants, says whatever he wants, and there's no problems with that. But then a citizen comes up to the podium who's criticizing and the council and the chief, and he's got to limit his speech, and he's got to tweak what he's called or his family's called. And yeah, so quite frankly, I absolutely believe that they don't want to be criticized, and so therefore they don't want the public to see it, because I have gained some support from the community. Now I'll tell you, I think it was a tactical misread on their part, because people that did know my story were starting to say, "Well, man, they want to shut this guy down. If he's lying, then what would they care? Just let him get up there, say his 3 minutes, ignore him." But now they want to quiet him too, and they haven't called him a liar. Now people are like, man, maybe something's not right here. Maybe this dude's right. And maybe he's not. Well, quite frankly, yeah, I'm a disgruntled employee, but I have a reason to be. And maybe what this guy is saying is true. Maybe what he's saying is needs to be looked at. And so what better way than just quiet me down, and quiet the citizen participation.
Right.
Titusville was going to do it, and they didn't. Titusville didn't do it.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking into that Titusville story. We kind of talked about it today, me and you, and we're going to look into that. Palm Bay Live is going to look into that and try to figure out what's going on up there. I know Brevard News did some articles or stories on that too as well. But I want to backtrack a little bit into leading up to this. At a recent city council meeting, Mayor Medina asked if there was an investigation into Chief Aguila, and the answer was no. Okay, he went around the room. He asked the attorney. You were there. You saw the the how it played out. However, after I watched that, and I have an assistant. Yeah, I have an assistant that helps me with Palm Bay Live, and like I told you, Palm Bay Live is self funded. So if you guys want to help, give me a ring a day. But anyways, and so we looked it over and we're like, wait, what are you talking about? There's no investigation, and we know the answer, and we wanted to do further follow up on that. So what we did, we take it a step further as a media entity, and we said we're going to do a public records request. So we did that. And when we did the public records request, we pretty much asked the question the way it should be framed, that I thought it should be framed, right? Was there ever an investigation into Chief Aguila? And we got a surprising answer, right? And the answer was yes, pretty much. The way it was laid out to us, there was an investigation. And so, and it was from an outside law firm that they had hired, Rumber Kirk, to look into the allegations that you presented. And then for some reason, the assistant, well, the city manager at the time that came then to, as a temp because of they fired the other one, Susan Sherman. They fired Susan Sherman. Pretty much, he came in and he said, "Listen, we're going to put a stop to the investigation." Now, the part of the rationale was because they said you weren't participating by wanting to be, I guess, interviewed or part of the workup for the investigation. So give me, I paint the picture. So Lance, what we need to know is, one, do you have an attorney right now? And I and also, would you like to opine on the process where you're at right now, and kind of laying the framework for us as to what are your next steps? Because you see where we're at. They pretty much has put a stop to us as a public viewing your comments when you get up there to speak. So we don't know what is being said anymore. Well, lucky for us, we were able to see last night's meeting, right? As you can see, and we just answered that. So I just paint a picture. So talk about that investigation that took place that you know of.
Yeah. So first, yeah, somebody just needs to Facebook Live the public comments, take it out of their hands. The community member, I don't know, maybe let somebody like Palm Bay Live sit at the back of the room and literally just stream it, because it's not right that they're going to do that, and it's definitely not right they're going to do it because of me. So I think we can get by that as a community. So yeah, there was an investigation, right? So I was contacted. So remember, I spoke this on city council on September the 2nd. I'm sorry, I was separated September the 2nd. I spoke to city council on September the 5th.
Right.
That night, I sent them a message. I said, an email. I said, I will speak to you individually, one-on-one, and tell you my story. I immediately got a reply back from Mayor Medina. We've been advised by council not to speak with you. And my mind says this, because I'm a cop, was a cop. If I go to a house, I knock on the door to talk to a suspect, and they immediately answer the door and say, I have an attorney. What does your mind say? I got the right guy.
Yeah.
If they sit there and willingly talk to you, okay, I either have somebody who, I have the wrong guy, or somebody who has an ego that thinks you're smarter than me. The city immediately attorneyed up on September the 6th. They immediately pulled the attorney card on me. Mayor Medina said, you need to go get an attorney. Phil Weinberger says, yeah, we've been advised not to speak to you. I never had an attorney. I never claimed lawsuit. I never claimed anything. But right off the bat, the city lawyered up on me. The city lawyered up on me. That's the fact. And so then I get a, so then in October, I go and I get an attorney. I take Mayor Medina's advice. They're not talking to me. I go get an attorney. And then they send me a thing in December saying that they've went to an outside agency, Rumberger and Kirk, to investigate my allegations. And then one of the things that they asked me is, will you provide a statement? And I'd already provided a statement. I provided a 2-hour statement on August 15th to Eric Messenger. I gave him 2 hours. I gave them more than ample information. They could have talked to citizens. I gave them names. They could have talked to city employees. They could have talked to anybody that they wanted to do to confirm my allegations. They could have talked to anybody. They could have talked to Chief Agello. They had 3 months to talk to Chief Agello. And even in their thing, he was so willing to provide a statement. He had 3 months. He never provided a statement because I'll tell you why. His statement would have either confirmed what I was saying or would have been misinformation. And so on February the 6th, I go to the podium. I know there's an investigation, but I haven't heard anything in months. I go to the podium and I ask the question: if Chief Agello is under investigation, why is he still in his position? Why is he not on administrative leave? Cocoa Beach, when they investigated their chief, they put him on administrative leave. You know why? So people would talk. People aren't going to talk when the man that threw the deputy chief out is sitting there that can throw out everybody else. They're not going to talk. And that was my question. And it was that night after that council that it was made public that there was an investigation. Interim manager, Scott Morgan, and I can only tell you what the paper said. The email that I got said the letter that I had to do a public records request. Patricia Smith was told by Morton to call Rumberger and Kirk and stop the investigation. And people have this misconception. Well, they stopped it because I didn't provide a statement. That's not what it says. I had it pulled up, but I don't want to hang up on you again. I had it pulled up. It literally says they didn't have any findings from the investigation because I didn't provide a statement and they were told to stop the investigation. That's why they didn't put findings. They never said they stopped the investigation because I didn't provide a statement. They stopped the investigation because the city told them to. And they told them to because they knew what I'm saying is true. That's why they stopped the investigation. Why else would you start one? And I guarantee, and I'll be on the side of Patricia Smith here, because she didn't say I stopped it. She said I was directed by Mr. Morton to stop it, which tells me she didn't want ownership of that because she knows it's dead wrong to start an investigation and then stop it before you get the answers. Why wouldn't you get the answers? If I'm lying, you want those answers. Get the investigation over and done with as quick as you can. Put the results out there, right? Put your body camera footage out there. Put your results out there and shut me up. Put me at the back of the audience where nobody's going to listen to me. But they couldn't do that because they know what I'm saying is true. That's the facts. So.
And so the public can see it. I don't
Thank
know
you.
how bold I can bring it up here. Let me see if the public can see it here. This is the email reply that was sent to us from the city when we did our public records request, and very lengthy. And towards the conclusion here, it basically says, I can read it here. It says, Rumberkirk was retained to investigate the evidence and allegations concerning whether Chief Aguilera has improperly utilized Palm Bay Police Department resources for his own personal benefit, and by inappropriately directing Palm Bay Police Department resources and personnel outside the scope of the official authority to the Axford House, a community-based sober living environment across the street from his home. On February 6, 2024, we were informed by Ms. Patricia Smith that Intercity Manager Scott Morgan directed her to end the investigation. As requested, we have provided all documents and drafts related to the investigation. And I believe that was the end of it. So that's pretty much how it got ended, right? So.
And then the second part of the question I didn't answer, right? And so on February 20th, I brought it up again. And then that's when Mr. Rob Medina turned and said to Mr. Morgan, this is the second time that he's brought up allegations that there was an investigation against the chief, right? So he's wording it to call me a liar. The allegations, this is the second time that this gentleman has come up and talked about allegations of an investigation against the chief. He knew that there was an investigation, but they closed it in February, after February 6th and before the February 20th council. So then he turns to Mr. Morgan and he says, Mr. Morgan, are you aware of any act? And he says the word active investigation. And Mr. Morgan says, well, no, well, I've just gotten to the thing, and he rambles on for a little bit. But then he says, no, I'm not aware of any active investigations. And then he turns to the city attorney, Patricia Smith, and he asks her, and she doesn't answer. So he asks her a second time, and her only words are, no, sir.
Yeah, because of the way the question was framed.
But she knows it wasn't right.
Yeah,
didn't
that's
want
why
to.
Palm Bay Live. Once I watched that and I saw the the body language, I knew there
Yes.
was something more to be answered.
Yes.
That's why I immediately the next morning say, you know what, something is not right. So I framed the question properly and sent it to them, and they couldn't get it. I mean, they had to answer me at that point in time and tell me the truth. And that's why I got this lengthy reply to say, yeah, there was an investigation.
Yeah, I'm
There
sure they
was
weren't happy with your inquiry either.
no, they were not. Let's
They
just
don't,
say
they just
that
don't
there's a
like
lot of
people
folks
that
listening home
question
that
them.
are
That's
not
just
happy
the
with me
fact.
right now.
It's just the fact. They don't like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. There's a lot of
But
folks that are not
but
happy with.
we're ran by a city council that runs on the transparency. We have a police department that talks about transparency, but when you ask them to be transparent, they treat you like an outsider, like an enemy. They don't want to be transparent. They want to be transparent when it's right, when it's good, not when it's bad. I'll just divulge because I talked about this. So Chief Ajello did a SWOT analysis, a strength, a weakness, opportunity, and threats assessment. The only thing he would allow to be published was the strengths. I did a public records request. It took 4 months to get back on a simple analysis, and the only thing that was put in paper was the strengths. He wouldn't allow the weaknesses, the opportunities, or the threats, and just tells you you want to be transparent about the good. You absolutely do not want to be transparent about the dark secrets, and that's a shame.
And Stephen asked a question: why can't we come out anymore in the pages, including Palm Bay Police Department? This is the reason why, Stephen, because of this situation. This is exactly why we were cut off from doing that. And we also did an article on that, folks. We've been doing a lot of articles. I'm not sure if you've been following them, but we have been on top of this. After Lance and his wife came to me, we've been on top of this and doing a lot of articles in this regard. So make sure you're following Palm Bay Live Facebook page and our website, www.palmbaylive.com, because we have been dropping the articles on doing the homework on this to get the message out. So ensure that you follow the website, you follow the social media pages, so you can know exactly what's going on. Okay. I have multiple callers. My phone is ringing. We have multiple callers calling in. Let's get the first one here. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hi, I just had a question. Like a couple of years ago, there was an allegation and comments made in a meeting where the mayor had pulled out a weapon while he was on a ride-along with a police officer. I've been trying to get those records forever, and everybody tells me they don't exist. I've met with the chief about it. He tells me that I need to contact former Chief Moya to try to get the information. Mr. Fisher, do you have any suggestions on how I can get these reports, since everybody seems to be looking the other way when it is alleged that the mayor did pull a gun, and that's why the rules were changed on ride-alongs for elected officials. Can you comment on that? What are your thoughts?
That's alleged, right, caller? You're saying allegedly because
Well, I'm saying is allegedly, but it was talked about in city council meeting, and I'm trying to get those records. If it did happen, how come there was no police report made? How come the upper management is referring me to a former chief to try to get the information on it?
wow.
I'm saying allegedly because I'm trying to get the information to prove it. That's why it's allegedly right now.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a wow. Do you know anything about that, Lance?
You want to hang up real quick, Kevin? You want
Yeah.
to kill this interview?
Yeah. Hold on. I think there's another caller on the line. Hold on.
This is a good
Caller,
question. I can answer
we're
it.
gonna answer your question here in a second. Let me make sure the other caller is still there.
You need an assistant, Kevin.
I'm still here, Kevin.
Oh,
because this is something that needs to be brought out.
okay, all right. All right, you hang up, and so you can hear the answer. We're gonna let him answer you in a second. I think there was another caller calling in at the same time you were, but I think they may have hung up. So go ahead and hang up, caller, and let's see what his answers is. Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Lance. Opine on that if you will, and
No,
make
I'm
sure
good
you use the word
because
allegedly. Because
I've
if
talked
you're
about
not
that.
sure,
I've talked about that in public. So I brought that up at the podium.
yeah.
So yeah, Robin Dean does ride-alongs. Like I said, he openly supports law enforcement, and he does ride-alongs. No issues with that. So I can only tell you what I know from being a staff member. I wasn't on scene, but I know that an officer made an allegation that the mayor during a ride-along had brandished a firearm, and he put that in writing. And I can't remember if it was a command staff email or if it was a text message. I honestly can't. I can tell you that went from that officer through Lieutenant Rubnicki, through a commander, through Deputy Chief Mario Agello, and then a chief. And I can tell you that Chief Agello was in charge of the operations at the time, and it fell onto him to confirm or deny the allegations. And in the end, we didn't have body cameras at the time, and even though that officer had made that, I'll say, complaint or allegation, however you want to say it, but he at least notified us that a ride along that was conducted by Rob Medina, Mayor Medina, he brandished a firearm. So we were never able to substantiate or not, but it just seems odd to me that an officer out of the blue would send an official email or text message. So caller, if you're trying to get it, that's what you're gonna have to look for. I think if my timing is right, I think it was towards the end of 2021, but we did change our policy. We changed our ride-along policy so that city officials had to read and sign the ride-along policy, recognizing they couldn't bring firearms because we don't allow firearms on our ride-alongs unless you're an officer, unless you're a sworn officer. And the simple reason of that is a ride-along will not be recognized by every officer. And if we go to a scene and somebody is brandishing a firearm that we don't recognize, and that there's a danger. There's danger to the officer and a danger to the person that's doing the ride-along. So we don't allow them. And so we did change our policy that our city officials would read the policy and sign it acknowledging that they couldn't bring firearms. So I can tell you there was a policy change based on it. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. We have another caller. Go ahead, caller. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I have this on speaker. Give me 1 second, caller.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, caller.
Hello, Mr. Fisher. Now, there's been whispers around both administrative and legislative levels that you're not in your right mind and that people shouldn't listen to you. Now, can you elaborate on whether or not there was a psychological evaluation made and what the results were? Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear him?
Yeah, I heard him. Yeah, people make comments. I heard that Chief Agello's last wellness coordinator was telling people I went crazy. Just, again, people have discredited me. They've done everything they can to try to threaten, intimidate, harass, that kind of stuff. And I'm okay with that, because I knew that when you openly speak out about, military, law enforcement, any kind of careers where you're a brotherhood or you're a sisterhood or you're, a family, right? You're not supposed to speak out about it. So I knew that those comments would come out there. Yeah, do we do psychological testing? Yeah, everybody in law enforcement has to pass the psychological test to get into law enforcement. Did I do throughout my therapy? Did I go through testing? Of course. Was I ever claimed crazy? No. Did I have PTSD? Have I been diagnosed with PTSD? Absolutely. But I'll be honest. I think anybody that's going to law enforcement is going to see some sort of that, and it's a shame. It's a shame that career will do that to you, and it's unfortunate. But you're not going to go through your career. And I've said it before. I call it a meat grinder. You go in as a person, you come out just a blob of meat. The best you'll ever be is a hamburger. That's just the unfortunate part of it. That's why Florida's legislation has PTSD. The legislation. It's unfortunate that it doesn't extend to our dispatchers. I mentioned that in one of our meetings or the council meetings. Why are our 911 operators? Why are they not considered first responders? Because ultimately they're the first ones to get the call. They're dealing with the same trauma. They're just dealing with it over the phone. Our records people, our evidence people, they got to see the same videos and stuff. So it's an unfortunate part. But yeah, we do psychological testing. One thing that we weren't doing is we have officers doing the same job. Crime scenes, seeing crime scene after crime scene after crime scene after crime scene, and those take a toll on you. but we weren't requiring updated, counseling or therapy or just getting them to make sure our officer wellness. I think they may be doing that now because we talked about it towards the end of my tenure. But yeah, so yeah, they call me crazy, all kinds of stuff, and I'm okay with that because people are going to have opinions of me. I'm okay with that.
Lance, when hires are done in your when you were there and you were part of the management team, when new hires are done in your department, s- does every certain what level? How do I want to frame this? Does everyone has to go through the city council? For example, a tap management position, or hypothetically a new therapist that's coming into the department. Those kind of, do they need to be run through city council or upper management or anything like that?
Are you? Maybe I'm a little confused. You talking about new hires, officers? Or you talking about employees?
Outside civilians.
Yeah, normally there's a hiring process, and normally, yeah, we do a hiring process. We call in candidates, and we pick the best candidate, and there's a whole process for it. They go through HR, they go through a background process, they do all that. Um,
But
I
do
don't
they
know if this is.
require, or do they require at some point, any one of the positions, do they require city input, like city council or anything like that?
Um, Only city council only hires 3 people.
You're somewhere,
City
I'm going
manager.
somewhere with this question. That's why I want to frame it to make sure that I'm on the right track.
I think you are, so I think where you're going. So if you want to just jump right through it, I'll get in right into it. You talk
Okay.
about you talk about
So
the new wellness
a
coordinator.
therapist being hired by the police department,
Yeah,
would that need to go city council approval?
nope, it wouldn't because we found a loophole. So basically, what had happened is, and I told you about my that I was doing therapy. I told you that I spoke with the chief about that I was struggling, and he recommended that I go to a local organization here in Palm Bay because we had a contract with them. We used this organization for our officers, or officers are involved in shootings. That we had dispatchers going there. We had all kinds of folks going there to his organization. So he suggested, hey, you should go and you should sit down and and talk with somebody. So I did, and then he further said you should talk with my therapist, and so I did, Ashley Harrow, and I'm there for like a month, and all of a sudden there comes this coordinated effort to hire her, the chief to hire her, because at the same time our wellness coordinator was leaving, um, and so there was a coordinated effort to hire his therapist, my therapist, to the police department, and so that went through. Um, no hiring process. Human resources through Jessica Henchman, who is Laura Clausen's niece, um, orchestrated the whole thing where he basically hired her. He negotiated her salary in text messages that I have. There was text message about her having to amend her resume to meet the job description that we created. He just arbitrarily picked a salary that she needed to come here, and he hired her. And then not only that, then he gave her a 10% bonus, 10% bump above the starting pay based on a memo. And again, all public record. And see, that's what's great. So when people call me a liar, like the mayor saying I'm lying about an investigation about the chief, I've already done the public records request. I have the information. So I've pulled it. So there was a memo put in place basically saying because her extensive training experience, he asked for a 10% bonus. So now he's hired somebody that he's worked with from the outside who's been involved with the police department, who officers have sat down with and told their every inner secret, good or bad. And now this person works directly for the chief. And I've been in those meetings. There's nothing confidential. There is nothing confidential in that office. I've been in those meetings. And it's unfortunate. And then he hires her. In the first year, they've spent $12,000, again, done my public records request, $12,000 to send her to multiple conferences throughout this country. But yet they gave her a 10% salary bump to hire her based on her training experience. But then we spent another $10,000. So she's looking at probably, if I had to guess, and this would be an estimate, probably currently making $70,000 working for the police chief, feeding him information. The same information that I provided to her during my therapy sessions was used against me in my workman's comp case. Is it ironic that she worked for the chief while I was fighting my workman's comp case, and those same statements were used against me? Absolutely not. Is it tragic that this person works directly for the chief of police? Absolutely is. She should be as far away from the city as possible. If at least under human resources, where there is a level of confidentiality, or from an outside firm like we had before. We were using an outside agency. We contracted with them, but to have somebody that one has a relationship, a personal relationship with a chief, they had one outside of work, a therapist client relationship, and then hired by the police department and works for the very man that was sitting in the chair. And then that information is used against an employee during a workman's comp case is absolutely ridiculous. And if that doesn't say something to, and I don't know how these officers can trust that system. They shouldn't. It was used against me. The very statements that I made to Ashley Harrell were used against me. He hired her and put her in a position right next to him. And to me, it's crazy. I brought those up. Nobody cares. Everybody outside the organization says it's unethical. Everybody inside the organization has no problems. Even though I have text messages saying that she needs to change her resume to meet the job description. I have the text messages where negotiating salaries. I have them, but nobody cares. It's unfortunate.
Hmm.
Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah. Wow. And I see. Hold on one second. We have another caller. Caller, you're live. Go ahead.
Is that therapist a licensed therapist? Because if not, then she wasn't even qualified for the job.
Yes or no? Do you know?
Honestly, I don't know. I've had people reach out to me and have concerns with
Thanks, caller.
with some of the that know more about the medical field than I do. I don't know the difference between certified, license, or whatever. I don't know. I think it's easily to find out. But quite honestly, um, you know, was she qualified? I don't know. I know you can pull her resume up. I can tell you that she never, she had multiple jobs within a short period of time, which what we frowned upon when we hired people. I can tell you that, we negotiated her salary outside of the normal process. We hired her outside of the normal process. And it was basically, and this isn't the first time the chief has done this, hired somebody just arbitrarily because of who they are. He did it when we lost a logistics manager position, and he told the commander, you will hire this person. And we did. And he told another commander, Latour, you will hire my son's girlfriend. And then when she didn't fulfill her obligation and prepare for the interview, he changed his mind and said, just do the process. So this is just another example of him manipulating, controlling the system. I'm the chief of police. I can do whatever I want.
And I do, Lance,
I'll
not to cut
protect
you off.
anybody. I will do anything for
Yeah.
family, blue and blood. That's just statements he's made.
I do see one of the council members has joined the conversation, and thanks
Okay.
for being with
Please
us,
do.
Richard, Mr.
Absolutely.
Hammer. Thank you. Always a support of Palm Bay Live. And I did, to be fair, community, Palm Bay, when I started my investigation work on what's going on with Mr. Fisher, I did several months ago reach out to several council members, and some of opined on this situation. I'm not going to say any names. I want to keep them out of this. But they did tell me straight up, they said, Kevin, um, I want to help Mr. Fisher, but I can't. My hands are tied because of the fact that he's suing us. That's what his statement was. And because he's suing us, we're part of the legislative body. And so therefore, I can't opine on anything because he's suing us and I'm part of the legislative body. So I got to be careful what I say. So I said, okay, I understand your position. But again, I did go back to them. I present my findings as relate to the question of was the chief ever under investigation? And I said, listen, somebody lied to you guys, or the question wasn't framed correctly because he was at some point in time on the investigation. And I did present those findings to them. So, anyways,
Can you follow up on that?
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's my theory, right? So yeah, I filed an EEOC complaint, right? So I have, but their employees can file this and still work for the city. And here's my question, because I asked to meet with Mr. Morton, and he replied in an email basically saying, you have legal representation. again, lawyered up, right? He followed up with a phone call and said, well, let me figure out if there's a venue that he and I can talk. I haven't heard from him since, but I'm okay with that. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and and I'm okay with that. But here's the question I did ask Mr. Morton. Have I forfeited every right that I have as a Palm Bay citizen to meet with my elected officials because I have litigation about EOC? So I can't talk to them about any other thing because my allegations against Chief Agello don't have anything to do with my lawsuit. The fact that he targets a house across the street from him has nothing to do with my EEOC complaint. The fact that he goes on in text messages using their personal phones to avoid public records requests, to avoid and violate sunshine law or public records, that has nothing to do with my EEOC complaint. The fact that my house was targeted has nothing to do with my EEOC complaint. If I have tall grass or my neighbor has tall grass, can I not meet with my elected officials about the grass next door? Can I not meet with them? And I'll just say chickens because that's the funny thing in council. If my neighbor has 6 chickens, can I not meet with my official? So have I forfeited my rights as a citizen of Palm Bay because I have a pending allegation for EEOC? Have I? I hope not. But here's the thing. So they keep lawyering up. And you mentioned Mr. Hammer. So I think he's doing a tremendous job.
Yeah,
I think he's doing a tremendous job. Okay. But I've put enough up there on the screen for any one of those individuals, any one of them to say, we got to do something. We either got to prove this guy wrong or we got to prove him right. I put proof on that screen. If that was anybody else in the police department, they would at least at a minimum be on administrative leave, if not terminated. If you sit there and if you have an officer, and I put an example on there where a St. John's deputy said, let's have a 3-day hunt on homeless people, and he gets disciplined and demoted. Ironically, the same day that I spoke in council, if that had been anybody else or any other agency, remember, a chief of Tampa was asked to resign because she was stopped as a passenger on a golf cart and showed her ID. And they said that was abuse of power. But this man in uniform, on duty, will go to a house because he's mad that somebody said hi to his son's girlfriend at MedFast right there, and will go and confront them on duty. I've put it on the screen. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to talk to me at all. You don't have to talk to me about my EEOC complaint. But when I'm talking about at the council, when I talk about tasing a man off of a fence and paralyzing him, or I'm talking about you taking a guy off of a Segway and putting him in the hospital, or you can Google it, you talk about excessive force on Pinewood, where we mount a guy and we pummel him in his face, and then the report says his facial injuries, to include a black eye that's this big, was because we tased him and he fell to the ground, but not due to the strikes. Those are wrong. You don't need me to tell you that. Google it. Look at the screen I'm putting up there. You don't need Lance Fisher to get there and show you that. You don't need that. So don't use me and I have a lawyer. When you lawyered up on me, you lawyered up on me on September the 6th. I have it in an email, Kevin, you've seen it. The city lawyered up on me. Don't use me as your scapegoat for your inactions. And I'm saying that to anybody who is trying to do that. And again, Mike Hammer's doing a tremendous job. He cares about the city. He's been through what I've been through. I don't know if he's been through it to my extent, but he's been through it. And it takes one council member in council reports to simply say, we got to do something. This isn't right. If one thing that I've said is true, say I'm lying about 99%, if there's one thing that I've said that's true, the city has a problem. The city has a problem. You don't have to believe me.
Yeah.
Believe what I put on the screen.
I think we may
Believe
have
what's in the
gotten some
videos.
new,
Believe what's out there.
yeah, we have probably gotten some new viewers along the way, and I want to show that video
Bored, so
again.
if you're 9 o'clock at night, what better to do?
Yeah, let's show that video again of the
Okay.
shoot. Yeah, so folks can see it, right? So let's bring it on screen.
So, I know it's Melbourne, it's not Palm Bay.
Yes, sir.
But if you got crime scene, which I get, you collected his clothes, they took pictures of him wearing the clothing with the vomit and the blood. You got the scene held, and you're telling me the mother or father can't go be with their baby at the hospital right now with the detective to go interview them over there?
The mother can. I'm trying to work on arranging to make sure we're clear to go on that. That's
Thank
what I'm
you.
on the phone with. I've
And
been doing that.
Can you tell that sergeant right there? I'm not trying to be an asshole. I just got off the phone with Commander Rankins.
Okay.
All right? He better chill the fuck out. That guy better chill the fuck out, LT. I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
Have a little compassion, brother. I don't know how long you've been on the job. That our grandbaby's probably not here anymore.
Let me work with him. Okay.
Fucking no goddamn professional courtesy.
Yeah.
I mean, it says it all right there. And I understand he's going through an event, right? I understand that. But Littles, he confronts, he even walks towards him, have a little effing, and it's showing an ID on a golf cart is an abuse of power because you say, oh, I'm the chief of police and you're asked to resign. And I can't tell you the incidents, that I've talked about. I've put it out there in black and white. And so you don't have to talk to me. You really don't. Even if I've forfeited all my rights as a citizen of Palm Bay, just because I filed an EEOC complaint, which an active employee can do. So if an active employee can do it, they can't even talk to anybody? I mean, it's insane to me. But yet they lawyered up. So to put it on me is just not right. The city lawyered up on September the 6th. I literally said, I will meet with every one of you. And I understand some of those council members weren't on there. But I provided an opportunity where I would sit down and do a one-on-one with them. And I didn't have a lawyer September 6th. I didn't get a lawyer until deep in October. But I've put everything, and I've purposely done it in public. So there's nobody that can say they don't know. Because I'm telling you, I believe there will be a resolution. And people are going to have to answer. Why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you do anything? You didn't even try to confirm or deny these actions. You've allowed the police, and I'll tell you this, every incident that happens after I've spoken with, people should get attorneys and they should go after them because I've made it blatantly clear that we're violating people's rights across the street from the chief's house, that we have no purpose, we have four sober living facilities in the city of Palm Bay. One of them had 185 calls for service, police initiated in a 9-month period. The other three had one in a 2-year period, one between three of them. Yet the chief of police gets to target his neighbor, gets to use every resource the city has. Probation, code enforcement, fire department, building, every resource the city has to target his neighbor. I don't get that. I don't know if you get that, Kevin. I don't know if anybody's ever complained about traffic or drugs or anything in their house, in their neighborhood. Do they get that kind of response? Absolutely not. And this is a sober living facility that is protected by the Supreme Court, that is protected by the laws. Who Patricia Smith told him, you cannot target this house. You can't do it. It's illegal. But he did it anyway. I've proven it. So don't use me as your excuse. Don't sit here and say, because I got an attorney or I didn't provide a statement, because I did provide a statement. I was fired less than 2 weeks later. I was fired after I provided a statement to the city, to Patricia Smith and Eric Messenger. So I get it. He's doing a tremendous job, but you can't use me as your scapegoat. You can't use me as your scapegoat. I put it on black and white. I put it in public. People have seen it. So
Wow.
Sorry, I got a little emotional there.
That's okay. All
But
right.
I'm tired of that. I'm tired of hearing that logic. You got an
Yeah.
attorney, so we can't do anything. That's not right. Because you know what? The citizens don't care that I have an attorney. Mr. Thomas Farley that got tased off of the top of a fence line and is paralyzed, he doesn't care that I have an attorney. Scott McIntyre that was put into the hospital, he doesn't care that I have an attorney. Esteban Morris, who was tased off of a motorcycle when he had an officer pull up beside him and tase him off a moving motorcycle, he doesn't care that I have an attorney. Jacob Mitchell, who was beaten on Pinewood, he doesn't care that I have an attorney. They don't care that I have an attorney. But I'll tell you what, when an incident happens next week or a week after, because we don't have accountability, they're not going to care that I have an attorney. And I'll tell you this, Ben Crump doesn't care that I have an attorney. I'm sure he's laughing that this city won't do anything. And you don't think he's taking notes? that he's taking notes that, oh, there's a deputy chief that's out here openly talking about allegations against the chief in this city, and they're not doing anything about it? He's laughing. He's laughing. He's the ones representing Mr. Farley, last I knew. He's laughing. If they're not going to do anything about it, good luck, and you better settle. You better settle, and everybody that the city of Palm Bay owes money to.
What is the outcome you really like? Do you want your job back? Do you want to just move forward, get your benefits? What is it the best outcome for Mr. Fisher?
Some of that, is obviously tied up into my lawsuit. So when I say I don't want to disclose my EEOC because I just don't want to. But the only thing I've asked for, do an investigation. Do an investigation. Do what's right. And that's all I've said. Do what's right. The city knows what's right. They need to do what's right. And the first thing is, you have my allegations, and so do a lot of other people. And you need to do what's right. Prove or disprove what I've said. Because if you prove it, you got a problem. And I've proven it. I've proven it time and time again. I've proven it every 2 weeks on Thursdays, starting at 6:00. And now what are they going to do? They're going to try to silence me. It's unfortunate. A transparent city council and a transparent police department. And that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. And it's a shame. Don't try to, and I said this before, you're trying to silence one person to protect one person while you're taking away the rights from 130 or 140,000 people. You're trying to save one person from one person. Do you want to save Chief Ajello from Lance Fisher? Prove me wrong. Do an investigation. You started one. You were there. You were there. You were so close to proving me right that it scared you and you stopped the investigation. So you know what? You can't prove me wrong, and you certainly don't want to prove me right. So what's the best thing to do? Just shut me up. That's the best thing to do, but it's not going to happen. I've been doing this for over a year plus. I never thought I would do this. I told you, I don't want to be doing this. I want to just retire and move on with my life, but I can't do that for the men and women that are there. I just can't do it. I can't do it for the citizens. This city has to do what's right. That they have to do what's right. So whatever that is, they have to at least do an investigation. You have to at least validate or discredit me. It's as simple as that. You can't do neither. Doing neither is wrong.
Community, do you have any more questions for Mr. Fisher? Put them in the chat. We're going to give it another 15 minutes or so. We're going to wrap up soon. Or call the number on the screen. I know I saw the comments from Mr. Hammer. He can't opine on anything that's happening right now. He feels it for you guys, and he's praying for the situation. So I'm just reading his comments based on what he says. And
I get it, but do something about it. Do something about it.
But what can he do?
Here's the other thing I hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one person. I hear that. Oh, I'm just one person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one person, but I'm the one that fight the fight. What can any council person do about it? They can do a timeout in a council report, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they sure took the time to shut the citizens down. They took the time to do Jaffe did a whole resolution to shut the citizens down. So what can you do? Bring it up. Show your concerns. Hey, I'm concerned about these allegations. This man has been coming up here for a year. Why did we stop? Ask questions. You know what's funny? When they bring the chief to the podium, nobody ever asks him any questions. Nobody asked him any questions. When they asked him about Frank Tobar, have you had conversations with his family? Yep. Last Friday. You sure did. You had a conversation the day after Lance came to the podium.
Mr. Hammer, I hope you don't mind me bringing this comment on the screen. I'm going to bring this comment on the screen that he's been citing this section, and I believe this is probably from the charter, that says appointment and removals. No member of the council shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any city administrative officer or employee whom the city manager or any of his subordinates are empowered to appoint. However, the council may express its view and fully and freely discuss with the manager anything pertaining to appointment and removal of such officer or employee. So I guess the charter is pretty much what he's saying here is limiting him from, firing the chief. So the only person from my assertion is going to be the city manager. So that can possibly do this, if anything.
He's correct, and that's why I said you could. You know, I think you'd ask me what can they do. They can bring up council reports. They can make it known of their concerns, and they can turn over. They did it. They did it last night. They can turn to the man and say, "Hey, I want you to look into this. I want you to find out these allegations are correct or false. I want you to open up an investigation." They can do it. You know, I've been to several council meetings. I'm not completely filled on it, but yeah, you're right. They can hire and fire 3 people: city manager, city attorney, and clerk. But they can give direction. They can talk and have a consensus. They do it all the time. They can have an open forum right there in their council reports, have an open consensus. Do we all agree that the city manager should open up an investigation? And then we can find out which council people care. You can call a motion and see if you get a second. And then the public can find out, is this city council going to be transparent? How are they going to vote? If somebody brings up the motion in a consensus, you know, hey, I want the city manager to look at these allegations. I get it. We've had interim after interim after interim.
He's saying that we can't discuss the actions of HR ever. So that's what he's saying. I guess there's something in the charter that's saying that. I would imagine that's his rationale for making that statement. Yeah, he says that's illegal. So I guess there's something in the charter that's preventing them for discussing that.
So they can't give direction to the city manager. I don't know. Again, I don't know all that.
Ye-
But if you know if that's
I
the
don't
case,
know, because based on this statement, if we read the language, and let me know, Mr. Hammer, you can correct me in the comments. Let me know. Um, it says, however, the council may express its view and fully and freely discuss with the manager anything pertaining to the appointment and removal of such an officer or employee. So I'm imagining that they can make recommendations to the city manager to say, hey, listen, we want this person out for whatever reason, and then it's going to be left to the city manager to make that conclusion as to whether or not they're going to get rid of that employee. But um, so yeah,
well, I can tell you this, right? I can tell you this. They've certainly protected him from the dais, and I'm not. And when I say they, I'm being very generic. You know, and I'm not trying to be single out people, but I'm saying the mayor is absolutely protecting the chief from the dais. He's been called to the podium to discredit me. The chief at the podium has said, I'm going to go to the state attorney's office and discuss his statements pertaining to an officer, basically saying he's going to have me, you know, seek charges against me. They can openly say all that stuff. And so I don't understand if they can't even have a say, like they can't even say, I'm not saying tell the city manager to remove him. I'm not saying that at all. You can, I don't see, yeah, again, I'm not up on the laws and all this stuff, but it would seem disheartening to me, and I'm glad that we have a bylaws or policy review committee that was just formed, because if a council person can't bring up the fact, I would like to see an investigation, then that's disheartening. If they can't turn to the city manager and say, can you just prove or disprove this guy? Because if that's the case, then I've been wasting my entire time, because I'll tell you what, the city manager won't meet with me either. So what is a citizen supposed to do? If a deputy chief can't get anywhere, then what's a citizen supposed to do? Well, honestly, that would be the question. If nobody's going to investigate, or nobody cares, what's a normal citizen supposed to do? And I'll tell you, I worked this job for 20 plus years. People have complaints all the time and they feel like nothing is being done. And I can tell you for a fact, being in those shoes, and sometimes things don't affect you till they happen to you, so you don't think about it or care about it. But man, I feel sorry for our citizens. I feel bad for them, because I know the system. I know the people. I've worked beside them, and I can't get anywhere. And now, if I'm telling you the city charter doesn't allow you to turn to your city manager and say, or to even give advice, hey, can you even open up an investigation, and that's prohibited? Well, I hope our charter review board looks at that, because to me, that's insane, because they work for the city council. And if the city council can't even give them a suggestion, hey, that this guy is being There's allegations of criminal allegations against my chief of police, and you can't tell your city. But again, you have a city attorney that's sitting there. Are they not responsible to be like, should I do something? Am I supposed to notify anybody or not?
Yeah.
I mean, is there an obligation for anybody to notify anybody? Or are we just it's 3 minutes and we sit down and pretend like nothing happened? But you know what I'll do? Like last night, a lady gets up and she's a developer, and they'll go on for 3 minutes after her public comments. But when a citizen gets up there, Bill Batten, Robert Stice, these guys get up there and they just next speaker, please. But then, I see Councilman Jaffe sitting with her before council. And then she gets up to do public comments and they discuss her situation for 3 minutes. But a citizen of Palm Bay, they want to deny them the right to even speak. And then they won't even comment on them. They say, oh, that's a staff thing. That's not for council. So we're not even going to speak on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I
Be consistent.
I
Just
get
be
what you're
consistent.
saying. We have a caller, but 1 second, caller. There was a question that came to mind, and I was going to ask it. I'll come back to it. It's
Okay.
more of a statement for Mr. Hammer, because I know Mr. Hammer is watching. So 1 second. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, you should interview Mr. Hammer next.
There's a misunderstanding about what the charter is supposed to be governing, or is supposed to be instructing. When there is a concern from any city council member about any type of allegations, where it's sexual harassment on the job, or things like what Lance is going through, it is up to city council to bring it up to the city manager, and for that city manager to order an investigation. Now, if the city council members do not do that, it's because either they're afraid, they don't know what they're doing, or they just don't give a damn, which is what's going on with this current city council. They don't care about the culture, about what's going on here. My husband was falsely arrested. Thank God he had the Ray-Bans on recording what was going on. And the state attorney saw that video and dropped the charges immediately, because my husband was being set up. He had drugs placed on him when they had checked him 3 or 4 times. So we have to get a city council that's willing to come forward and say, this is wrong and it needs to be corrected. What's going on with Lance is wrong and it needs to be corrected. I am looking at all your comments and seeing people have been falsely arrested. That needs to be corrected. We need to have a city a meeting with all the leaders in this community to establish a citizen watch for the police department, and to watch for the city council, because they're not above the law. The mayor is not above the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
Thanks for
comment?
your comment. Thanks for your comment. Go ahead.
So 100% thank you for the comment, and absolutely right. It wasn't until I went down this journey that I realized there's so many stories like mine. But that caller hit something on the head, right? The Citizen Review Board, it's very simple. If we have use of force allegations, because we do a PARS report, it's a performance action report or something like that, but it documents in over 180-day period of how many use of force or incidents, disciplinary incidents or crashes that officers will have in a 180-day period. And officers that I'm talking about have 6, 7, 8 incidents in a 180-day period. We'll have some officers who won't have any. And those should be red flags, right? Sometimes they aren't, sometimes they're not. It could be red flags that we have officers that don't know how to communicate with people, that are not being tactically sound, or they're just one of those guys that are into stuff, or girls that are into stuff more than others. But we have a system in place. And so, but when you have a citizens review board that gets to look at these things, because a lot of times we wouldn't even know about them until they would surface on social media, until a video that was taken from a ring camera would come up, and we would be like, ooh. And then we would have to sit there and try to piecemeal this thing and try to justify it, which ironically we always did. It didn't matter how bad it was. We would sit around a table and we would justify it somehow, some way. Oh, right there, touched his vest. But you have a citizens review board and have an outside influence, and at least look at them. And they don't have to have any discipline power or anything like that. But just be transparent with your community. When you have officers engaged in use of force situations or discipline, when you have an officer that says, posts on social media, a group of Black doctors that are graduating from medical school and the post says, this is what your future doctors will look like. And he posts, I would rather die than be treated by a black doctor. That should go to a citizens review board. And what, is that discipline worthy, or is that something we just we just shove it on the rug? No big deal. We have an officer that I'm not going to say is racist, but he has racial tendencies, right? He's shown racial tendencies, racial bias in that statement alone. And then we're not concerned that he's out here policing our community. We're not concerned. What if that officer is involved in some excessive use of force with a member of our black community? Is that not now a problem? Do we not notify our local NAACP chapter? Because those were my recommendations. My recommendations were the officers on probation, termination, and notify the local NAACP, because they should be aware that we have an officer that is on our force that has racist tendencies. Say what it is. I'm not saying he's racist, but he made a statement that was disparaging to our black community. And we have a black community, it's about 20%, which is ironically the same ratio as our police department. We do a great job. Now, when you get above the rank of lieutenant, we don't have a single black officer above the rank of lieutenant. And somebody mentioned earlier about public comments. When did they get shut off? You look, they got shut off at the end of February, the end of Black History Month, because I time and time again said that Chief Ajello will not promote a black or African American officer above the rank of sergeant. He just won't. It's the fact. Look at it. We have an all white male command staff. We have 2 Hispanic females above the rank lieutenant. After that, it's all white males. I think it was Indian Harbor, Indian Beach just promoted a black male as a lieutenant, but we don't have one. People have been passed over time after time after time. So you just look at the facts and you make them up to be what you want, but that's just how it is. And so, yeah, you can get away with this. You do a citizen review board, an outside entity that can look at these things and say, okay, you know what? They can be a good advocate for you, because here's where this is what the chief of police, in my opinion's responsibility is. When you have use of forces in deadly force situations, right? Their responsibility is not to protect the officers. That's just not. Now, you'll see that in organizations. You've seen it in the Palm Beach Police Department. That the belief is that you're there to protect it. You're not. You're there to get the truth. It's the defense attorney's job to protect the officers. It's not the police department. It's not the chief of police. It's not the administration. That's not their responsibility. If an officer is involved in a use of force situation, it's not our job to protect the officer. It's our job to back the officer up and be there for them, no matter if they make a mistake or not. Right? It's our job to be there to back them up, but it's not our job to protect them. It's our job to get to the truth, and that's the fact. When we cover up things, or when we cover up small incidents, we're not protecting our guys. If we want to protect our guys, be accountable for the small things. Be accountable for the little things, because there becomes a point in time when you can no longer hide those small things, when they become a national problem. And so that caller made a good point. I kind of rambled a little bit, but take it to an outside entity, take it to a citizens review board. Have your community leaders out there that can represent our community and say, I saw it. I can tell you, I investigated it. They will be your biggest advocate. They'll be your biggest advocate. But no, when you do something wrong, you admit your mistakes. I don't know why we can't admit in law enforcement. We just can't admit our mistakes. We're human. We make split-second decisions. We make mistakes. Just say, I made a mistake.
Okay, let me take a little bit more questions before we sign off for the night. We have a nice size audience.
Let's do it.
And
I got caffeine, I'm good.
We've been holding them, and I've been drinking a little energy drink. This one is nice, V8 sparkling energy. I drink a little plug. If you guys want to pay me for that plug, let me know. Okay, reach out to me. All right. Question: How would he turn protect and serve from a slogan into the department policy? Do you know how to answer that?
Well, that's a very generic term, right? That's saying the same thing, like we're a family, protect and serve. That's a feel good for your community. When in reality, here's the deal. So there's a couple theories out there in law enforcement. I don't know if I'll get to this, but it's a good question. So you have a guardian and you have a warrior mentality. So you have agencies that promote a warrior mentality. And it's ask, tell, do. Ask somebody to do something. If one time they don't do it, you tell them. If they don't do it, you make them do it. That theory has been tossed aside, and that's your warrior mentality, right? The most of law enforcement is trying to transition more into a guardianship mentality. You can't lose the warrior mentality because you have to have it. Things happen, bad things happen, and you better be ready for those. Because if you're not ready for those, you're going to get hurt. But you also have to understand there is a guardian mentality to it, right? So we can't go into every call ready to grapple and fight, and that's just how it is. So you have that guardian mentality. And so there's been a kind of a shift. And if you talk about under the Obama administration, they came out with policing in the 21st century. And it talks about that little bit of a shift in paradigm. And so when you talk about protecting and serving, it's a mentality that you have to be willing to be a guardian. Always have that warrior mindset ready, but you can't go into every call with a warrior mindset. You should. There's a lot of times you'll know what calls to take that mindset into, but it's not every call. It's very little calls, quite honestly. We should be taking a guardian mindset, a mind into it. But when you get on scene and you use force, and then you later tell Chief Agello in the parking lot when he asks you, "Why'd you use that much force?" and he tells you, "I've dealt with this guy before and he pissed me off." That's not a protect and serve mentality. That's not even a warrior mentality. I went there knowing that I was already mad because he misused 911 and I got tired of him wasting my time. I've dealt with him before and he pissed me off. So I immediately went for the tase, mount, and facial strikes. It's a fact. You can see the video. So yeah, how do you turn it into a slogan? You got to change your mindset. It's got to be a guardian mindset with a willing to transition to warrior on a split second.
Yeah. Wow. What a night, Lance. What a night. We've been going at this now since 7 o'clock. It's almost 10. And we said today when we started the conversation, when we were going back and forth on the interview process, that it's going to be a long interview and I'm going to give you the floor to speak your mind beyond the 3 minutes limit that the city council give you. To Mr. Hammer, I know you're watching. I want to say this to you, sir, and I know you're tapping. I'm seeing you tapping a text to me, but I need your help because here's the deal. I work from home. I'm a member of the media, and I work around the clock. I can't attend all the council meetings, and many of the articles that I write for the public and to get information out to the public is because I'm able to watch the city council meetings live and I like to hear the public comments. So this is my plea. Please, I don't remember how you voted on this issue, but please, 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 we need to open this back up. I need to be able to see the full city council meetings, including the public comments. I can't make it to all of those meetings, but I've been serving my community well since 2020, writing articles, bringing you guys on when you guys are campaigning for your offices on so you guys can deliver your messages to the public. And I really, I don't know if other council members are watching. Please, please reconsider your vote on this issue. We need full transparency. We need to see the full city council meetings. And I need to see it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Hammer was all for the public comments. He voted against the resolution. He's been open. He's been open about it. I think he is like I said. Him and I maybe disagree on how to move forward with me. I'm okay with that. I'm obviously biased towards myself, but he's done a tremendous job for the community. I voted for him, and I'd vote for him again in 2028 or whenever the math is. So, but yeah, he was all about freedom of speech for the citizens wanting to hear the voice, and so was the mayor. The mayor and I have openly disagreed, but I've been consistent with him on Sacrifice Park for a majority of that. and then about the freedom of speech. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They have to bring that back. You can't. And again, I think it was a tactical bad maneuver on their part, because more people are openly against this council now than ever cared about poor little Lance Fisher. But now people are like, "Whoa, man, they're going to silence the whole community for one guy."
And that's
So
pretty much what happened.
that's
I
exactly
mean,
what's happening.
I don't want to be some bias, but that's what happened.
That's
that's
exactly what happened.
that's
I didn't
exactly
say
what
that. People
happened.
called me up. I was taking phone calls
Yeah,
all
I was
weekend.
flabbergasted when I saw it. I was like, "Wait, what? We're gonna do what?" And
Yeah. And you
I
know what? If they would have told me, hey, this is what we're going to do unless you stop speaking, honestly, Kevin, I would have probably stopped, because my intent was never to take away the rights of the citizens. They started on January 25th when they took away consent agenda items. And I think Bill Batten said it last night. You will sit there and deny the rights to talk about $12 million, but you guys will talk for an hour and a half about $50,000 because it's not for nonprofit. To me, it's insane. You know, we've had, I think, 4, 5, and 4 proclamations. I mean, come on, man. But yet you want to take away the citizens' right to speak because of me? Don't do that because of me. Just all you have to do for me, prove me right or wrong. Very simple. But yeah, but Mr. Hammer's been on the right side of this one.
yeah.
So, and I'm glad he came on
I think
tonight.
he messaged me. I'm watching my phone. He's messaging me. He knows how to contact me, so he's been messaging me on my personal phone.
And
So
he's been
I do see that, and I understand, Mr. Hammer, that only the individual who voted against it can ask to bring it back, and I understand that that process, and I understand how it plays out. So I'm appealing because I know one of you are watching this video tonight. I know one of you are watching tonight, and whether you're watching now or going to be watching it later, I'm appealing to you. Please bring this back. I work from home, and a lot of folks work from home. I, some of you know about my personal work and how I work, and I serve the community. And how I serve the community is by writing my articles, doing these videos, right? And this is how I get my news. This is how I'm able to bring out information to the public for those who may not be able to see the videos. All right. And this is how I do my fact finding and able to bring out information like what happened to Mr. Fisher, and was able to stay on top of it the whole time during the process. I didn't have to attend a meeting. I just watch it, see it, and reacted in real time, and do a public records request and publish my article and let the public know about what's happening. So I know you're watching, one of you. Um, make this right for the city of Palm Bay. Make this right. I'm appealing with you. Make this right. We can't keep going like this. Make this right. All right. Mr. Lance came on tonight. He gave his viewpoint. I'm not, I'm just a wannabe journalist. I gave him the platform. I let him speak so you guys can hear his story and you can dissect it. You can believe it or not believe it. It's totally up to you. Um, and I allow him, and Mr. Lance, you can come back anytime, right?
Hey,
You can come. We can do this another Friday night. I am game. I am
I'm ready.
game.
Yeah, here's
So,
what's funny. They say I'm
yeah,
retired, right?
because
So I can
we
do
had
it
a
whenever.
type audience. Yeah, I am game. We'll find another hot topic to discuss, and we can bring it back.
Let's do speed cameras.
Yeah, the speed cameras. That was another story that Palm Bay Live broke, right?
We do an hour on speed cameras. You want to get people mad at you? Let's talk about speed cameras for an hour.
Right. Right, definitely. That, I mean, so guys, if you have not been following our articles, we broke a lot of stories on Palm Bay Live. That was one of those major ones that we broke, the speed camera issue, because you guys came to us, public came to me and say, "Hey, listen, this is happening," and we broke the story and said, "This is happening. This is what we found," and then it went from there. The other news entities picked it up, and it just was all over the place. But anyways, it was a good conversation tonight, and I thank the public for watching. Any last words to the public, Lance?
Yeah, I'll just say this first, Kevin. I appreciate it. I will tell my story to the best of my ability. I've been transparent. I don't hide anything. If you believe I'm lying, shoot me a message. I'll send you the proof. I've said I will provide anything to any person that it wants it. If you want any PowerPoints I presented at council, I will present them. I sent them, you know, and I always send council my PowerPoints afterwards so they can review them. But I will send anything. If anything you think that I'm lying about tonight, let me know. I'll send you the proof. The only thing I can't prove is one-on-one meetings, obviously, because that's a he said, she said, but everything else is black and white. And I've done almost $1,000, probably a little bit more in public records requests, and I can do it. But I do thank you, Kevin. You know, I do implore the city council to review that last Lance Fisher resolution they did, because it's not fair. It's not fair to the citizens. And quite honestly, you're only proving my point. You're proving my point that what I say is true, and you can't defend it. So what you're going to do is try to silence me, but you're not going to silence me, because you know what? I've been doing more and more interviews. I've been doing podcasts. People from New York have reached out to me. I've had people from all over this country reach out to me. And you want Palm Bay to be the greatest city on the face of this earth? You better do something differently. You better do something different.
Yeah.
If
Believe it or not, tomorrow morning,
businesses are not going to come in here.
Yeah,
If businesses do their research, they are not coming to Palm Bay. If residents do their research, they're not coming to Palm Bay. The longer I talk, the more damage it does. And I don't want to talk, Kevin. I do not want to talk. I want to be done with this.
yeah, I understand, and I hear you, and I hope we come to a good resolution that benefits you for the long term, you and your wife. And thank you for joining us. And I do have a interview tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. For those who are up early, I do have another show to do tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. If you want to join me for that one, I'm going to be interviewing a candidate who's running for Florida House 32, C32. Is a special election that's coming up on March. Not March. I'm sorry. I'm going backwards. June 10th. June 10th, there's a special election coming up. For those who listen in that district, will be able to see the video, and it's going to be aired on Palm Bay Live, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is going to be that interview. So for those who are up early and want to watch it, or you can watch it later because it will be recorded. It will be up on my Facebook page and on the YouTube page for Palm Bay Live. I'm going to encourage you, please follow Palm Bay Live. Go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get up to 1,000 unique visitors on there, subscriptions. Facebook has been restricting a lot of my videos. They've been deleting them. And so I need to cross over to YouTube. So please go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help me get to 1,000 subscriptions so we can get those algorithms moving in my favor. I intend on doing more videos like this. That's my intention. As long as we can get more audience participation and also more guests that we can feature on the platform. And anybody that has ideas and that they want to bring to the table and how we can keep this platform going, I'm all ears. Kevin at PalmBayLive.com. Kevin at PalmBayLive.com. We recently, there's a young lady that just graduated from UCF. She's going to be serving as one of our journalists. She's going to be coming on board here shortly. She's going to be interning with us, and I will announce that at some point. And so that's the good news for us, because now people are seeing our work and they want to be involved. So that is good. So things are progressing for me, and it's been 5 years now since I've been doing this. 5 years. And thank you, Palm Bay, for your love and support. And thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for hearing Mr. Fisher's story. And I implore you to like and share this video across Brevard County so his story can get out. Thank you. It's been a long night. So we joked early today, we were going to have cocktails on the desk and all of that good stuff. Oh, we have a caller calling in. I guess this is one last call for the night. Let's see. Let's take this as one last call. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Oh, well, this is actually Stephen Herrera, the person that's actually been messaging all night. Oddly enough that I get the call. I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to leave it as this. I have been discriminated against and falsely arrested over 4 times by Palm Bay Police Department in the last few years. They have repeatedly harassed the community in multiple ways. And we, when I say we, because there's more than just me, that's why this is a community conversation, have been repeatedly to the city manager's office. We have been repeatedly to everybody through the chain of command. And always we get dismissed, we get barred, we get pushed away, we get threatened. And especially for me, what they like to do multiple times is falsely arrest me through false police reports. So I only want to say this. First of all, I represent my company, which is Stop Veteran Abuse Journalism. I am a citizen of Brevard County in Palm Bay. I've grown up there my whole life. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. There have been many issues for many years going on with a lot of corruption. I want to keep it very simple and clean since Mr. Lance is on the phone. Mr. Fisher, good day to you, sir. You know who I am.
Thank you, sir.
I wasn't expecting to be live, but the fact that I am live is the testimony that we have a problem in Palm Bay. And the biggest issue is that they keep diminishing the citizens' response. As much as Lance spoke, I'm the deputy chief and this and that. How are the citizens going to be? Well, I'm a citizen. And they have arrested me 4 times falsely, beaten every case, 2 of them under stand your ground law. With collusion and corruption, I have body cam footage. I have everything that I need to present to you in an interview from my journalism company to your journalism company to have another interview and really start setting the stage to change Palm Bay, Florida. Because we need to come together of the community that knows the truth against the corruption, the lies, the scams, and the fraud, and what they're doing to us. And I'm going to leave it at that. That's my statement. My name is Stephen Herrera. Mr. Lance Fisher, you know who I am very directly. I'm an advocate like Mr. Lance is. And unlike Lance, even when Lance was in his position, he wants to admit to the facts of crime. He knows that they arrested me multiple times falsely. There's no hidden secret in this. This is a community conversation. And we need to start holding people like the chief of police, Wayne Ivey, and Rob Medina, other individuals of the board and the city council manager, and everyone else accountable. And this is a public statement. Notice the agent is notice the principal, notice the principal is notice the agent. I want everybody in my community to know that they are hurting us and we need to stop this destruction. And we need to start having better people in positions to lead the community versus hurt the community.
Okay. I think I get sent a message on the community in the chat for you to contact my assistant, right?
I haven't. It's been going crazy since I've been on your chat, brother.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you for taking the courage and going against, because we have been doing this for years, okay? And the community is shut down, they're barred, they're silenced, they get arrested. All this stuff goes on because no one wants to know the truth. Well, as a person of the community, as a veteran of this country, as a person that has been arrested 4 times falsely by Palm Bay Police Department and beaten every single time, on top of Palm Bay PD body cam that we have access to through the journalism company and through the FOIA for the individual cases, we can show the collusion and the mindset that is going on with Palm Bay PD.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a very big problem in our community, and I'm speaking up because I grew up there. I'm 40 years old now. I'm a veteran. I'm living my life. I'm here to be an advocate for our community, regardless of what people feel and think. No one even shows up to the community board members. 2 people, 3 people online. You got 100,000 people in the city, and no one understands what's going on with the corruption. We want them out. We're starting petitions. We are moving ourselves ahead on my own side, sir. Mr. Kevin, Mr. Lance, you already know. We are moving everything in our own way. Regardless of you all, I want to work together with you because I want this community to know the truth. We need to stop being hindered, harmed, harassed, and abused by Palm Bay PD, Wayne Ivey, and everybody else in the city officials that don't care about us as citizens.
All right. Thank you, sir. You please email my assistant staff right at palmbaylive.com. And
I'll get in touch with you personally.
and then we will have a conversation.
Come down or meet with you virtually, and I want a whole second interview, and I want to present the body cam footage of what we got with American Legion Post 117, 0117, Jesse Salter. He was a former detective of Palm Bay PD. I want to show you the amount of level of corruption that we can prove how they distribute themselves against the community. And that means, i.e., they're not here for us. They're over here. Oh, badge and blue, we're going to do good. No, all they did is do false arrest, stand your ground. We were ran over. People brandished firearms on us. I mean, when I really start to release this to you now, since I'm live, God gave me the ability to be live with you. I want the community to really start to know the truth about what's going on. Mr. Lance Fisher, I respect him. I've met him. He knows who I am. We've had our time, but I still respect the fact that he has the courage to still come forth, because he is actually facing more discrimination than I am or other people involved in the community, because he's a part of them, quote unquote. So they are definitely after him. We need to pray for Lance. We need to pray for his wife. We need to pray for his family. We need to pray for our community.
Okay, sir.
I am a member of that community, and I am more than willing to take an interview with others and submit all evidence and do it in a proper way so that we can produce a show for you. But I want the community to know the truth, and we need to fix it.
Okay,
That's
sir.
all I got to say.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for calling.
You soon, brother. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right.
Not sure I could have said it better myself, Kevin.
Say again?
I don't think I could have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Probably should have had Steve on the phone or as the interview, but and our stories are not, like I said, our stories are not, they're everywhere, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I was part of the system, so I can speak the truth.
Right. Okay, Palm Bay. It's been a long night, and I'm going to sign off. 3 hours. We went for 3 hours, man. And we said it. We were joking around today. We said, man, Lance, at some point in time, I'm wanting a cocktail at my desk while we're doing this. It didn't get there. I got me an energy drink to keep going. But it was a nice conversation. It was a nice conversation that we need to do more of this and explore what's going on in our community and get people involved. And folks watched. People commented, people asked questions, people called in, and I really appreciate it. Join me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for my last interview this week. And if you're up early, and we will have another conversation. That one will probably be a short one. And it's not going to be a 3-hour conversation because I do have other things to do tomorrow morning. And someone said, darn, I missed most of it. That's okay. It's on YouTube. You can go back and replay and watch it again. Sorry about that. It started at 7. And we were here for 3 hours. So I'm sorry that you missed most of it. But you can come back and, go to the YouTube page. And I see that you're on YouTube. So go back and watch it. Can replay, fast forward, pause, and all that good stuff. That's a good thing about YouTube. Right? All right. Good night, Palm Bay. Good night. Thank you again, and see you soon. And hopefully we will be able to do another show like this again soon. All right? Talk to you. Have a good night.